Chapter 420. The power of Tenryubito is unimaginable. They are old antiques living in the old era, descendants of the 20 kings who built the world 800 years ago. No one in the world dares to question Tenryubito, including the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars. To some extent, the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars and the so-called Marine are the dogs of Tenryubito. Marine's superior department is the world government, that is, the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars, and the status of Tenryubito is higher than the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars. Once a Tenryubito is attacked, the Admiral of Marine Headquarters will personally come out and settle everything. From this, it can be seen how arrogant Tenryubito is in this world. It's a monster. Tenryubito is. Thinking of the unbearable deeds of Tenryubito, Hawkeye's face was full of strangeness. The guy with unprecedented strength in front of him turned out to be a Tenryubito. The world calls that group of special people the biggest garbage. It's no wonder that you find it so hard to accept, but as the saying goes, when things reach an extreme, there will be gold in the garbage dump. Shrugging his shoulders, Dustless did not deny it and said very casually, "More than 90% of the Tenryubito in Mariehua are lazy, and they are intoxicated by the glory of their ancestors all day long." Hearing this, Hawkeye was speechless. Dustless in front of him is the best example. There is a lot of garbage, and it doesn't matter if a piece of gorgeous and bright gold occasionally comes out. I am a criminal with a bounty of more than 100 million. The government will not let me enter Mariehua at will. Shaking his head, Hawkeye still felt like a sheep in a tiger's mouth. Although he is confident in his strength, Mariehua is the nest of the world government, and the last thing that is lacking is strong people. "It's you who think too much, they want you to go to Mariehua," Dustless said softly with a smile on the corner of his mouth. If possible, the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars would like Hawkeye to clean up the Tenryubito after entering Mariehua. This is also what the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars want to do. "Saying that you are a Tenryubito, I still feel like I am dreaming." Hawkeye breathed a sigh of relief. The strongest enemy he encountered in his life suddenly became one of the members of the world's biggest trash, and he inexplicably became a subordinate of the celestial dragons. Even if he was adaptable, it was hard to accept. If I were a fake Tenryubito, would I joke with the officials of the world government and the Marine? Rolling his eyes, Dustless asked. "This is no different from dying directly." "That's true." Hawkeye nodded slightly. No one in the world dared to pretend to be a celestial dragon because even if they had 100 lives, they couldn't withstand the revenge of the world government. Boom boom boom, a powerful airwave exploded in the air. In the center of the island, a powerful impact spread out in all directions. The sea surface that was hit by the impact formed stormy waves that were several feet high. Hawkeye and Dustless, who were on the outskirts of the island, were also affected. "It seems that the fight over there is much more intense than here," Dustless said thoughtfully as he looked into the distance. At the same time, his hands once again hugged the sky. The boundless repulsive force gushed out, and a small crater suddenly appeared on the sea surface under his feet. It was just that the scale was not as big as before. Shinra Tensei. The perfect 360-degree repulsive force erupted, and the incoming waves were suddenly split into 4 or 5 parts. The water stains in the sky disintegrated, and Dustless and Hawkeye, who were protected by the repulsive force, were not touched by the water. "Akagami, Akagami." Taking a deep breath, Hawkeye's eyes became complicated. Pirate is a profession that lives in a storm of blood, and from the moment you step into the pirate profession, you must be aware of it. "You and Akagami, Akagami, have a personal grudge." After a few glances at Hawkeye, Dustless's whole body lost its feeling and turned into thousands of particles that rushed to the center of the island. Hawkeye is not the kind of person who betrays at will. His dignity is more important than life and death. Since he chose this path, he will not be soft-hearted. Fistbone. Along with a vigorous and powerful voice, there was a loud bang and a huge black shadow was thrown out. Looking closely, it was 100 Beast Kaido who was thrown out. "Kid, you seem to have become a lot weaker. Don't tell me that this old man is more than 50 years old, so you want to go easy on me?" With all due respect, this old man really didn't see that this guy with horns on his head is a person who respects the old and loves the young. Garp looked at Kaido, who was covered in blood but full of energy. He had fought with Kaido before. Compared to the arrogant Kaido of the past, Kaido was obviously weak. "Don't take advantage of your seniority. Kill me if you have the ability." Kaido stared gloomily at Garp. His lungs were overturned and he was vomiting blood uncontrollably. This was all thanks to this hero Garp. Worthy of being the strongest man who forced the pirate king several times? Kaido wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stood up again with a sneer on his face. He said sarcastically, I was caught by the Marines before, but in the end you couldn't kill me. You couldn't kill me before and you can't kill me now. Due to the heavy injuries he suffered from Dustless, his mind was still in a daze. His strength was suppressed like never before. Because of this, Kaido was beaten to a pulp by Garp. Looking at the blood stains all over his body, his hatred for Dustless deepened. The whole island was filled with war, and the world government officials suddenly attacked, and the pirates were caught off guard. However, there is a gap between the forces of the two sides. Although the world government has high-end battle power, the pirates are obviously not bad. Under the oppression of the Shadow of Death, most of the pirates have abandoned their old grievances and chose to join forces to resist the strong pressure of the world government. The scene fell into a stalemate for a moment. It's very lively. Dustless landed on the island and looked at the situation on the island. He chose to look at the war from a neutral point of view. The idea was very good, but the reality was very cruel. Suddenly a cold look was cast over him. Apparently he was treated as prey. Chapter 421. Staring at the lone figure in front of him, the mysterious man's mouth curled into a murderous smile. Such a young person wearing the world government logo is either rich or noble. Kill him, the hypocrites of the world government should have a headache. The tall figure's inner thoughts turned into substantial actions. His heart was filled with murderous intent, and his huge body was like thunder. Under the sun his whole body was extremely dazzling. As far as the eye could see, its huge body was covered with hard diamonds. The speed of his whole body was raised to the limit, and so was his strength. His eyes were fixed on the figure in front of him and he suddenly attacked. Perhaps this person's strength was too terrifying, the ground trembled with his rhythm as he walked. Glitter collision. Aware of the sudden attack from behind, Dustless turned his head and saw the dazzling man wrapped in diamonds. After absorbing the sunlight he became more dazzling. Whitebeard Pirate's third captain, Diamond Jozu. Suddenly looking back, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Dustless said to himself. A tall shadow shrouded him. Looking up, it was a diamond fist raised high. Boring. Lifting his eyelids, Wuxia stared at the huge fist that was rumbling down. His mouth spat out cold words. Deep in his eyes, a ferocious aura flashed. He casually raised his arm. His small, thin white hand was in sharp contrast to the big, thick fist. On the surface, it was a completely unequal battle. Damn world government, disappear. His eyes turned scarlet and dense blood vessels swam. With endless anger towards the world government, he swooped down with an iron fist that was enough to destroy a building. Boom. His arm suddenly shook and unprecedented numbness spread through his body and mind. It was similar to amputation. He couldn't feel the existence of his arm. Diamond Jozu was stunned. His small hand was no different from a meteorite. It was extremely hard. How is this possible? His eyes widened as he looked at Dustless, who used only one hand to take his full blow. Diamond Jozu's voice trembled in disbelief. It's fine if you don't understand. As the price for ambushing me disappear? Dustless's face was filled with indifference. Light gathered at his fingertips and he aimed at Jot's heart. Whatever he did, he had to pay the price. As soon as he finished speaking, a straight laser beam whizzed out. So fast. His pupils suddenly shrank and Jozu subconsciously took a step back. Countless diamonds immediately extended from his strong body, protecting his entire person in a watertight protection. Clang. The diamond in the heart had a burn mark, and then the golden light beam was bounced off. It was obvious that the diamond was extremely hard, and the light beam from Dustless's hand was not enough to shake it. That's all. Removing the diamond defense, he was just about to mock Dustless for making him nervous for nothing. Just as the diamond on his eyes dissipated, a giant golden arm filled his entire eye socket. Boom. The majestic body that weighed thousands of kilograms was directly thrown out, and the shining diamond was also smashed into powder by the powerful force. The Diamond Jot's internal organs were all dislocated in an instant. He was dying and on the verge of death. The golden halo lit up again, and Dustless's thumb once again condensed a destructive light wave. Even if he was on the verge of death, he did not intend to let Diamond Jots go. The sound of breaking air resounded through the sky, and Diamond Jots closed his eyes in despair. He regretted it and waited for the arrival of death. His mind couldn't help but think of the past. Recalling the actions of the world government and the crew members of the Whitebeard pirates who died in battle, even if he died he would not regret it. Clang. The crisp sound of steel colliding came, and Diamond Jots, who closed his eyes, opened his eyes subconsciously and saw a middle-aged man in a black cloak. Red hair? The newcomer had a well-proportioned body and a dignified appearance. He had red hair and short stubble around his mouth. He wore a white shirt that was often half-buttoned. Sometimes he would wear a long black cloak, a western sword at his waist and sandals. The most eye-catching thing was that he was wearing an old straw hat. Yo Jots, long time no see. Turning his head and looking at the stunned Diamond Jots, Red Hair Shanks showed a kind smile, giving a soft feeling full of kindness and intellectuality. The corner of his eyes looked at the crystal powder sprinkled around Diamond Jots, and his eyes flashed. It was not difficult to guess the strength of a person who could beat a diamond into powder. Then there are always things that are annoying. His face turned cold. Cold light surged in Dustless's eyes. A golden light shot out from his finger. The target wasn't Shanks himself, but the straw hat on his head. It was a provocative and sarcastic move. Sure enough, the cold murderous intent in Red Hair's eyes flashed away. Clang. The western sword in his hand swept up, and the light beam was immediately bounced off easily. His swordsmanship was superb and the speed of light was well known all over the world, but Akagami, Red Hair, could easily send it flying. It was enough to see how shocking his observation hockey and visual dynamic ability were. He has lost his combat power and there is no need to kill him. Your Marine and the government represent justice, and it is not in line with your philosophy. Taking back his sword, Red Hair smiled at Dustless. Perhaps he was born an optimistic and positive person, and he had forgotten what Dustless had done. It's just a pirate, I'll just kill him and... I hate things like you who come out of nowhere. After a few words, Dustless's body had become a shadow. As for his body, he appeared like a ghost beside Red Hair, and his legs with golden light swept straight towards him. The people of the world government are really not easy to deal with. His body flashed back and easily avoided Dustless's kick. The smile on Red Hair's face finally disappeared and was replaced by a cautious face. Chapter 422. You can't judge a book by its cover, the sea can't be measured, and Akagami understood the real meaning. On the right side of the heart, a special pattern can be clearly seen. It is composed of a cross with 4 circles on it, which is similar to the white flag of the world government. Wandering in the sea all his life, Akagami naturally understands what this means. The world knows this unique symbol and it is synonymous with the devil. Tenryubito, staring at Dustless in amazement, Akagami felt that his mind was short-circuited. The sudden scene at the moment is similar to One Piece, Roger coming back from the dead. It is even more exaggerated than One Piece coming back from the dead. If you do anything to me, the Marine Admiral will kill you immediately. For fear that Akagami couldn't understand what he meant, Dustless winked at him and explained, pointing to the Tenryubito uniform under his clothes, indicating that he should be obedient and not act rashly. However, it obviously didn't have much of an effect. Red Hair Shanks was still cautious. The western sword in his hand surged with a sharp cold light. The cold light refracted by the sword made people not dare to look at it directly. It was enough to easily pierce people's eyeballs. That impeccable movement just now, maybe if the reaction was half a beat slower when he talked to Dustless again he might have been bruised all over. Facing a dangerous guy like you, it's hard for me to relax. Hearing this, Akagami said with a smile on his face, and the fear in his eyes was clear. At the same time, observation hockey quietly spread out, and the vast range of horror almost covered the entire island. This should be able to perceive his movement speed. Every movement in the world entered his ears. Even the slightest change in a blade of grass and a tree could not escape the red-haired Shanks's prying eyes. Only then did his surging heart finally calm down. Dustless's unparalleled speed, I'm afraid no one can get over it. Suddenly, the coverage of armament hockey suddenly set off a violent vibration, and the domineering momentum went straight into the sky and disappeared in an instant. The ghostly voice resounded behind him. Red Hair Shanks could even feel the chilly wind on his neck. That bone-chilling voice was as cold as the ice in the deep sea. It was inhuman. Do you think you can resist me by reminding me? Too naive, Red Shanks. Or, did you think that the power I displayed earlier was my full strength? As soon as he finished speaking, a dazzling golden light shone brightly. A calf that could easily flatten a small mountain rose from the ground. His move was ruthless and merciless, directly sweeping towards the back of the red-haired Shank's head. I knew you would do that. Helplessly sighing, the corner of his mouth raised into a calm smile. The red-haired man simply looked ahead indifferently. His body was as motionless as a sculpture, and he did not even turn his head back. A cold light flashed in the air, and the well-prepared western sword rose with the momentum. Pucci. Scarlet blood mixed with the flowing air, filling the air with the thick smell of blood. Looking around, Dustless's kick had been easily cut off by Shank's. This casual slash was incomparably sharp, no worse than Hawkeye's. Observation Haki is a very mysterious ability. I can hear the sound of objects. Even the slightest movement, no matter how quietly it moves, can't escape my perception. You are too careless, Tenryubito boy. Such a reckless attack, you can only blame yourself for such a result. Whether it is accidental or inevitable, it is your fault for being careless. Turning his head and staring at Dustless with a broken foot, Shanks explained in a long and serious manner. At the same time, his heart was full of doubts. According to Dustless's current strength, he should have understood Haki and even learned how to use it. It's really surprising. Your strength is so strong, but unexpectedly you don't know Haki. Looking down at Dustless, who fell to the ground and groaned in pain, red-hair Shank's face was indifferent. The western sword in his hand was raised high, and the refracted cold light fell on Dustless' eyes, making him subconsciously close his eyes. Pirates are cruel, and red-hair Shanks is the same. Of course, compared with those pirates who do all kinds of evil, red-hair Shanks is a different kind of existence. He is much kinder and more righteous than them. He will not be more interested in the weak and will not be bored enough to kill them. Dustless is an exception, and he is a very strong Tenryubito. It is best to kill him silently. Pucci. His eyes flashed with a touch of anger. Dustless's ravaged voice also stopped, and the whole world returned to silence again. Dustless's body also had a bloody trace, and there was no vitality. His eyes were quite regretful as he glanced at Dustless's body and walked away. If he had endured for 2 more years, he would definitely be a life-and-death enemy of pirates in the future. It's a pity that he fell like this. Brushing some dust on his straw hat, red-hair Shanks put it back on, lowered the brim of his hat, and went straight to the center of the island where the vibrations were strongest. Stupid, do you think that you can predict my speed with observation Haki? If you can try to predict my position again. The laughter of ridicule and disdain resounded throughout the void. Red-hair Shanks was stunned, and immediately saw his observation Haki spread out again. When he noticed a flash of light rushing towards him, it was too late, and his whole person had been eroded by the powerful golden luster. Boom! With a loud bang, a huge pit appeared out of thin air in the mountain in the distance, and red-hair Shanks was deeply trapped in it. I'm just playing house with you. Do you really think that you can kill me? Even if you're dreaming, you should know when to stop. The resplendent and gorgeous luster converged from all directions, and in the boundless energy tide, a thin figure slowly formed. The unscathed silhouette was reflected in the eyes of the red-haired Shanks. It was Dustless without a doubt. Don't think it's over? Ketan, Grand Fire Annihilation. Chapter 423. The scorching waves of fire didn't differentiate between friend and foe, burning the ground within a few kilometers, mercilessly roasting the earth. Not a single blade of grass grew, and the ground was in a mess. The ground that could still be considered green was completely devoid of life. The place where red-hair Shanks was, the fire was monstrous, and the flowing air, including the moisture contained in the atmosphere, was evaporated. Naturally, he was the target of Dustless's attention. The divine fire that fell from the sky burned everything, and everything withered, turned into dust and smoke, and disappeared with the wind. Under such a situation, no one could escape. In the endless sea of fire, everything seemed pale and powerless. Looking far, Dustless's eyes were dark, and his eyebrows were slightly raised. He was not as happy as he expected. Following Dustless's line of sight, he could vaguely see that in the blazing sea of fire, a dark iron man stepped out indifferently. The skin all over his body, even the hair on his body were dark, shining, fearless, and safe in the sea of fire, like taking a walk after a meal. His white eyes were covered with dense blood like a spider web, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. Wherever he went, the flames would be extinguished. There was no need for deliberate moves, but the suppression of momentum alone. You guy, are you really red-hair Shanks? Dustless's tone was a little surprised. Although he was 100% sure that the person in front of him was red-hair Wui, He was still temporarily distracted by his appearance. Red Hair Shanks's whole body seemed to be painted with ink, and he completely entered the state of armament hockey. I'm afraid that no one in the world has ever seen him before. The only person who was lucky enough to see this once-in-a-lifetime scene was Dustless. Staring at the pupils covered with blood, Dustless also knew that at this moment, Red Hair Shanks had completely turned into a ferocious beast. Your previous body should have been strange. Sure enough, the world is full of strange things. Unexpectedly, there is such a strange and unpredictable ability. Celestial dragons really have the advantage of time, place, and people. Pointing to Dustless's body that had been killed before, Red Hair Shanks was stunned for a while. The body that he had killed before had melted into an unknown golden solution. After thinking for a while, Red Hair Shanks came back to his senses and looked at Dustless. Deep in his eyes, there was a hidden cold light. The Marine is the enemy of One Piece, so is the world government, and celestial dragons are enemies for generations. We must try our best to uproot this thriving seedling. Otherwise, the great age of pirates that Captain Roger painstakingly created with his life as the benchmark will end in this boy's hands. The red-haired Shank's heart was unusually heavy. He felt as if a 1,000-kilogram rock was pressing on his chest, making it difficult for him to breathe. It seems to be a fierce battle. Looking at Dustless, Red Hair Shanks said cautiously. He took off the straw hat on his head and brushed the black smoke on it. His eyes flashed with a decisive color. He gently touched his neck and there was a crisp sound of bones. Obviously, he hadn't used this state for many years and he was unfamiliar with it again. A fierce battle? I really don't understand why you people are so confident. Where does your confidence come from? You always think that you are an omnipotent savior, and you can change everything with your blood. I can tell you very responsibly that's bullshit. In front of Red Hair Shanks, photons condensed in the sky. Looking up, it was Dustless with a cold look on his face, and his small legs gathered the dazzling sunlight. No matter what world, any place, the one who has the final say is the one with the biggest fist. With a sneer, an unprecedented heavy blow whizzed out and swept straight toward Red Hair Shanks's head. Seeing this, Red Hair Shanks's pupils suddenly shrank, and he didn't dare to be arrogant. He crossed his arms in front of him and pressed his body tightly against the ground, preparing for a full defensive impact. Boom! The thin calf seemed ordinary, but the strength was surprisingly terrifying. Red Hair Shanks was forced to fly, and the ground pulled out a gully of more than 10 meters long. This guy is worthy of being a Yonko for emperors, man. His attainments in hockey are so deep. Falling to the ground, Dustless's cold eyes moved. He didn't expect Red Hair Shanks's armament hockey to be so strong. His strong body was no different from a meteorite covered with human skin. However, Red Hair Shanks was also uncomfortable, and his dark cheeks were gloomy like water. He didn't reach this level when he fought with me just now. His current strength can't jump so much at once. Thousands of puzzled doubts poured into his heart. Red Hair Shanks was on guard against Dustless, and at the same time the thoughts in his mind rolled, and he secretly wondered why the gap between before and after was so big. Dustless, who was killed before, was obviously much more fragile. The exaggerated extent was like a Marine rear admiral suddenly becoming an admiral. Even more incredible than this. Clumsy, shaking his head helplessly, Dustless sighed and said, "You still don't understand? The person who fought with you in Diamond Jozu just now was indeed me, but that was just a doppelganger of mine. It was just for entertainment and to kill time. The strength that it condensed was insignificant. It was completely different from my real body now. The clone that just fought with you in Diamond Jozu was just the dessert before the meal. And you think you can defeat me with your own strength? Ridiculous." With a complacent look on his handsome face, Dustless ridiculed mercilessly. That arrogant look gave people the feeling that he was a villain who was intoxicated with success. Obviously, he was deliberately disgusting the red-haired Shanks. That wasn't your full strength before, and I didn't show my full strength. Hearing this, the red-haired Shanks only smiled, and Dustless' ridicule was treated as wind that entered his left ear and left his right ear. He was originally an optimistic person, and he would absolutely not lose his mind because of a few sarcastic remarks. His life had been filled with ups and downs, and he had already tempered a heart of iron that had been tempered thousands of times. "Hey!" Accompanied by a muffled and powerful shout, red-haired Shanks's body erupted with powerful energy fluctuations. His supreme aura was awe-inspiring and extremely domineering. Dustless's skin actually seeped out wisps of blood strangely. Chapter 424. His heart was silent, his eyes narrowed, he raised his arm and carefully looked at the changes in it. After a long silence, his deep black eyes rippled. Is this an ability? No, it doesn't seem like it. It should be some kind of strange move. It's hard to believe that the man outside actually has such a ruthless trump card. Looking at it, Dustless's surface skin suddenly and strangely overflowed with some traces of blood, along the pores of the whole body, slowly dripping to the ground. When did this guy do something in my body? Frowning without a trace, Dustless's face was full of doubts. A wisp of spiritual consciousness sneaked into the body and carefully observed any changes inside the body. After a while, the results obtained made Dustless stunned. The internal operation of the body was smooth, the blood circulation was unimpeded, and the internal organs were operating normally. Suddenly, a sense of dizziness spread all over the body, a drowsy tiredness spread all over the body, and the world and the eyes overlapped and blurred. Is it mental exhaustion caused by excessive blood loss? Under Dustless's feet, the blood went deep into the earth, the gray particles were dyed dark red, and the whole body was dry and no different from a dead body because of excessive blood loss. It turned out to be like this. It seems that you and the man Hawkeye are both kendo masters. Not only that, but the control of Haushikuhaki has also reached this incredible level. The deep black pupils restored the clear color, Dustless said bluntly. The combination of swordsmanship and Haushikuhaki. It seems that your Haushikuhaki has been perfected. Someone must have taught you how to be domineering. Otherwise, it would take you at least 10 years to reach your current state if you were to explore on your own. Wuxia said thoughtfully after taking a deep breath with a strange flowing light in his eyes. His turbulent heart once again returned to a dead silence. Although it is a guess, he is convinced that the red-haired Shanks Haki was taught by someone. Now he is only in his 20s and he can use Haushikuhaki to such a superb stage, it is inevitable that he will be taught by others. The pupils twisted sharply, and the scarlet Sharingan was exposed to the air. Through the special eye power of Sharingan, you can clearly see the special existence in the flowing air. These mysterious substances have no substance, like the light of a firefly, but they are real and they are extremely sharp, circling around the surface of Dustless's skin, constantly stabbing the surface of Dustless's skin. He can't perceive it, there is no pain, no way to resist it, the body seems to have countless invisible holes, and the blood flow can't be stopped at all. Man follows the earth follows the sky follows the path follows nature. Nature is the foundation of all things, it is invisible but real. The limit of Haki is like this, integrating your own attack into nature, attack. Shanks's thoughts fell into melancholy, his domineering eyes dimmed as he fell into deep memories. One could see the shadows of the former pirate King Roger and Dark King Rayleigh in his eyes. Is this your trump card? It is really vulgar. The cold sneer resounded through the sky. Looking up, it is Dustless. The void rippled, and a cold and indifferent voice entered Shanks's ears. On the other hand, Dustless's body, which was bleeding non-stop, has recovered to normal. Due to excessive blood loss, his face also regained its color, and his eyes were as bright as stars. Suddenly, there is an absurd feeling of being reborn. How is this possible? You shouldn't be able to resist that kind of attack. The red-haired Shanks said in a bewildered tone. His already dark face became even darker, no different from a black pot that has not been washed for 10,000 years. The force of nature is invisible and untouchable, but Dustless was able to resist it. How can he not be shocked? To deal with the force of nature, one must also use the force of nature and control nature. This is a special ability that the red-haired Shanks Haki has reached an unimaginable level, and he is only a beginner apprentice so he can only control a little. Tyrant Weave. You should be using this ability, right? Although you are just a beginner, it is undeniable that your understanding of Tao has reached an incredible level, and you have unique insights. Dustless said thoughtfully. The Tyrant Weave is a manifestation of the limit of Haushikuhaki. Although the red-haired Shanks has not fully mastered it, it is not difficult to see that he has already begun to understand it. It is a powerful ability that can only be activated after the Haushikuhaki is truly awakened and completely unleashed. Under the influence of this power, the dominator of this ability can integrate with the surrounding nature, communicate with all things in nature, and obtain the loyalty of all things, and even change the natural laws of the surrounding world. The red-haired Shanks can already use the force of nature in a small area, communicate with it, and use it to attack Dustless. He still remembers that in this world, only the red-haired Shanks can use Haushikuhaki to cause substantial physical damage. But from the beginning to the end, You have been wrong about one thing. His expressionless face slightly relaxed, revealing a touch of arrogance, and he said coldly, the Tao begets one, one begets two, two begets three, three begets all things. All things carry the yin and embrace the yang, and the rush of qi leads to harmony. Ancient and obscure words jumped out from the corner of Dustless' mouth, containing thousands of philosophies, full of infinite magic, and the vicissitudes of life of Sanskrit contained in the world for a long time. Not to mention the red-haired Shanks who was at a loss. Even Dustless seemed to understand. As you said, the foundation of all things is indeed the force of nature, and all things in the world circulate endlessly, playing out their own Tao. However, the foundation of nature is yin and yang. Open your eyes and see clearly for me what it means to integrate with nature, to control nature. As soon as Dustless's voice fell, the entire void underwent a strange change. Majestic energy scurried into Dustless's body. His entire temperament also underwent an earth-shattering and astonishing change. Immortal Arts. Chapter 425. Groups of natural energy were absorbed into Dustless's body, and the thin body turned into a spring in the deep sea, madly swallowing the natural energy of the void. Dustless's temperament also changed dramatically, and with it there were red marks on both sides of his eyes, and the whole person was full of vitality. Obviously he was close at hand, but there was always a sense of being far away. This state, seeing this, red-haired Shanks was slightly silent, and his excited heart also calmed down. His eyes were sharp like an eagle's, and he looked at Dustless with a hint of fear in his eyes. Integration with nature means that you can use the infinite power of nature, and there is an essential gap in the strength that you exert. He can clearly perceive that Dustless in this state is very dangerous and far away from the place. Red-haired Shanks can feel the sense of awe which is invisible but it is real. There are countless strange abilities. He is not using Haushiko Haki at all, and Haki has not awakened. It is still in a state of incubation, but he has the ability to integrate with nature. Pinching his black iron fist, red-haired Shanks was puzzled, and even said mercilessly that Dustless does not have Haushiko Haki is a problem worth investigating. Haushiko Haki is innate and it can't be acquired. The harsh roar resounded through the sky, and a dark gully suddenly appeared in the clear sky, extending to the distant sky, and the end could not be seen. Everything withered in an instant, and an unprecedented silence and despair spread to every corner of the void. Ka. The black light broke out of the prison like the light of destruction from the depths of the Nine Serenities, and it tore the ground into pieces, forming a bottomless canyon. The black light that can devour and annihilate everything went straight to Dustless, and it was obvious that it wanted to bury Dustless in one fell swoop. The incomparably sharp slash hadn't even touched Dustless when the black cold wind from the dark side tore at his skin. An unprecedented stinging pain spread through his limbs and bones. Oh, you are indeed a cruel and cold person. How can I resist such a dangerous move? I might as well kneel down and surrender. Seeing this, he shook his head. Dustless pretended to be distressed, and a little caution appeared on his face. It was a recognition of red-haired Shanks, and he couldn't help but secretly nod. Hawkeye is one of the 7 warlords of the sea, and red-haired Shanks is one of the Jianghu 4 emperors. Her acting skills are really bad. Her acting is too fake. Red-haired Shanks only laughed. He could naturally hear the disdain in Dustless's words. Immediately, the corners of his mouth curled into a strange smile, carrying a vicious and bone-chilling killing intent. Pirates are ruthless, and red-haired Shanks is no exception. Instead, he knows better than others what it means to get rid of potential enemies in advance. Whiz! Right at this moment, the dark and gloomy light shook abruptly, and then under Dustless's astonished gaze, it split into 3 and transformed into 3 long and narrow black-colored dim lights. Even though it was like this, its might didn't weaken, and the might of every single one of them was extremely formidable. Despicable enough. Dustless said coldly. His cold voice carried a sense of isolation from the world. Obviously, he despised red-haired Shanks's actions. Haha, I'm not going to let you go. Despicable? I am a pirate, Tenryubito boy. Hearing this, red-haired Shanks just smiled indifferently. Pirate is synonymous with despicable. Besides, the sword has no eyes and he doesn't think he has done anything wrong. His tight heart also relaxed and his eyes fell on Dustless. Red-haired Shanks was full of expectations, but he was destined to be disappointed. Senjutsu's Kinsusuno. The front was filled with dust and the visibility was less than 1 meter. After a cold low voice fell, A dazzling flash suddenly swept over, and the gorgeous light made Red Hair Shanks subconsciously close his eyes. He could only passively open his observation hockey to perceive the location of Dustless. What monster is that? Shanks's tone was surprised, and he was shocked by the monster in front of him. In the depths of the sand, a giant hole that had never been seen before came into view. The majestic body was wrapped with mysterious golden runes, revealing an indescribable ancient charm. Under the sophisticated perception ability, the entire appearance of this giant was exposed to the perception of Red Hair Shanks. So tall, so big, but it seems to be a little incomplete. Gulping, the red-haired Shanks opened his eyes in disbelief. He stared into the depths of the smoke, even ignoring the blazing flashes that burned his eyes. The mighty and mysterious skeleton giant was reflected in his eyes. What was strange was that it was obviously incomplete. It was only made up of a chest and a head. Even so, its physique was too big to be estimated. 3 dark slashes that were enough to devour everything rushed towards Dustless with an unstoppable momentum. Wherever they passed, the ground was pulled into a bottomless abyss. Oeo. Boom boom boom, a loud and clear roar came from the mouth of the giant wearing the Tengu armor. His scarlet eyes emitted a dangerous glint, and the tachi of light in his hand was swung out. Immediately after, a loud rumbling sound was heard, and the 3 black slashes that Shanks had high hopes for disappeared without a trace. It was completely annihilated in an overwhelming manner. Just the wind of the blade. It doesn't need any skills, just relying on pure strength. It's really barbaric. Red Hair Shanks's face was gloomy, and he looked back leisurely. He could clearly see that several mountains behind him had been flattened, and the cracks of the flattened mountains were smooth. Obviously it was a fatal blow. In the smoke and dust, there was a strong energy fluctuation, and the flying sand in the sky was instantly suppressed. Chapter 426. The ferocious Tengu armor was exposed to the erosion of the sun, and the tachi of light was shining brightly, and the cold luster covered the ancient earth, faintly showing a splitting trend. Boom boom boom. The lightsaber was held high and was about to roar down when a black shadow rushed over and hit Dustless's Consisenu, and the powerful force even tore some cracks in Consisenu. Looking closely, the person who was thrown away and hit Consisenu was one of the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars, with a sword. I didn't expect that group of people to be able to abandon their grievances and unite against us. This scene is really an epic picture. Patting the dust on his body, Gorosei, who was holding Shodai's ghost, sighed. The hatred between pirates is no less than a life-and-death enemy, and even because of a casual quarrel, the annihilation of the other pirate group has happened from time to time. The same is true for these top pirates in front of him. I didn't say I was one of you. Chakra surged, and the golden energy brilliance overflowed from the body. Dustless glanced at the bald Gorosei 5 Elder Stars, with a sword, and said casually and indifferently. Hearing this, the bald Gorosei 5 Elder Stars, with a sword, showed dissatisfaction in his eyes, but he closed his mouth wisely. Only an idiot would reason with a barbaric Tenryubito. Looking up, countless big pirates and groups of people were confronting each other. All of them were covered in blood and fierce like tigers. Whitebeard, 100 Beast Kaido, Big Mom, and Red Hair Shanks. It seems that your world government is in trouble. With a smile on his face, Dustless said gloatingly. The life and death of the world government has nothing to do with him, and the life and death of the Tenryubito has nothing to do with him. Looking around, the world government and marine are almost in a state of suppression. Under an absolute disadvantage, no one is willing to die. Since they don't choose to die, they can only temporarily join forces. The power of the future Jianghu, 4 emperors, wearing a pair of pants, no one can be relieved that it doesn't exist. But this old guy seems to be a bit wrong. Dustless sized up the 5 Elder Stars without leaving a trace. His gaze was slightly silent, and the strange look disappeared in a flash. Even the red-haired Shanks was simply ignored by him. So, seeing that Dustless was thinking about something and his body was full of holes, the red-haired Shanks took the opportunity to raise the western sword in his hand and slash down. A black slash once again whizzed out. Boring. Seeing Red Hair Shanks attack again, Dustless's eyes froze. He controlled Consusinu to raise its arm high. Just as it was about to smash the oncoming slash, an ear-piercing roar suddenly sounded, and an emerald green light arrived. Boom boom boom, the 2 rays of light intertwined with each other. After a while it was obvious that they were evenly matched. In the end they turned into a strong force and exploded. A young man with amber-colored pupils entered everyone's line of sight. The slender black knife in his hand was surrounded by a cold light, and there was still a dim light that had not yet dissipated. Obviously the slash just now was from him. "Hawkeye, what do you mean by this guy?" Looking at Hawkeye, Red Hair Shanks asked angrily. He and Hawkeye can be regarded as the same kind of existence. Seeing Hawkeye take his attack for Dustless, how can he remain calm? "As you can see, I am no longer a pirate." Hearing this, Hawkeye said calmly and indifferently. At the same time he was afraid that Red Hair Shanks would not believe him. He raised the black knife in his hand and another destructive emerald light shot out. It pulled the ground out of the abyss and went straight to Red Hair Shanks. "You bastard." Red Hair Shanks' face changed dramatically and quickly dodged. Hawkeye's sword attainments are known to the world. If he is determined to kill someone, he will definitely die. Red Hair Shanks smelled a strong murderous aura from Hawkeye's slash. So, with a stern gaze, the red-haired Shanks was not an indecisive person. The western sword in his hand was like a thunderbolt, and similarly, a black slash whizzed out. The two slashes were once again digested into nothingness. "This guy is my prey, let me take care of him," Hawkeye said in a deep voice as he looked at Wuxia with his eagle-like gaze. There had to be a winner between him and Red Hair. Both of them were at the peak of swordcraft and their abilities were on par with each other. It would be hard to determine the winner without a battle of life and death. "As you wish." Dustless heard this and smiled indifferently. If Hawkeye can solve Red Hair Shanks, it would be best. If he can't solve it, naturally there is a way to solve it. Hawkeye nodded slightly and didn't talk nonsense. He directly attacked Red Hair Shanks with his black knife. Red Hair Shanks is a small problem. But then again, what is going on with this guy? Looking back, Dustless looked around the 5 elder stars holding the knife. His brows wrinkled and the doubts in his eyes were clear. Following Dustless's gaze, the old guy's injuries were repaired by some special energy. It was extremely strange. It doesn't seem to belong to the type of devil fruit. Those 5 guys are not as simple as they seem. His heart inevitably calmed down. Dustless's eyes emitted an awe-inspiring luster, but then he thought about it and his handsome face was replaced by puzzlement. Mariehua's Gorosei, 5 elder stars, has a lot of scars all over their bodies. Their strength is incredible, and it is impossible for them to be injured when they were young. As the head of the world government, their enemies are naturally pirates, but Pirate King Roger, Golden Lion, and Whitebeard have no experience with Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Of course, Whitebeard is excluded. In addition to Pirate King Roger, Whitebeard, and Golden Lion, someone can actually hurt Gorosei, 5 elder stars. This is interesting. With a mysterious smile at the corner of his mouth, Dustless's heart suddenly became clear, giving people a feeling that they didn't understand, especially the gloomy smile, which was even more nondescript. Chapter 427. After racking his brain without any results, Dustless's thoughts also converged, and his eyes fell directly on the few people who came. There are many secrets in this world, and if he wants to compete, he will only be asking for trouble. Maybe he ate some mysterious devil fruit? His eyes fell on the Gorosei who was holding the first-generation ghost blade. Dustless secretly guessed, thinking of the strange energy fluctuation that repaired the wound before, he still classified it as the type of devil fruit. There is no such thing as energy in this world. Everyone cultivates physical techniques. The appearance of energy fluctuations also indicates that it may be some unknown mysterious fruit, especially the strange fluctuation just now, which coincides with the energy of Dustless's glint fruit. The plan that your world government and marine senior management painstakingly planned seems to have failed. The heroic and optimistic laughter resounded through the sky, containing a majestic and powerful force. It turned into a tornado that scattered in all directions. The oncoming world government officials were directly stunned by this monstrous hurricane. They frothed at the mouth and fainted. They were in a sorry state. Looking at the distance, the first thing that came into view was a tall body, and the strong muscles, and the thick arm holding a sharp sword. There is no doubt that it is Whitebeard. This old man is old but strong. Although he has not reached the late stage of aging, he is still a man in his 50s. His energy is unimaginable. If he was 10 years younger, there are not many people in the world who would dare to fight with him. Looking at Whitebeard's body, Wuxia murmured to himself with his eyes shining. Marine Fleet Admiral Sky, Buddha Warring States, Black Wrist Zephyr, and Garp all had their heads broken and bleeding. Even if there are officials of the world government, their strength is still insufficient to suppress these big pirates. On the other hand, although Whitebeard and Bigu's mom also have bloodstains on their bodies, overall, they look much better than the Marine. All of them are calm and powerful. Under the oppression of absolute force, they actually came together. It's really a mistake. The 5 honored stars holding the first-generation ghost blade had a gloomy expression. They gnashed their teeth and said hatefully. Everyone knew about the grudges and disputes between these great pirates. It was indeed unexpected that they could come together, even if they were forced. I didn't expect you to be a member of the world government. Life is unpredictable. Looking over, Whitebeard saw Dustless standing side by side with the 5 elder stars who were holding swords. His tone was surprised and regretful. The wind and rain on the sea were changeable. Unexpected things were common. He originally wanted to accept Dustless as his son so that he could give more shelter to his crew sons. Now, it seemed that his previous idea was just a dream, a bubble. You actually know him? Astonishment flashed in the eyes of the 5 honored stars holding the saber. Then he laughed in his heart. His shriveled lips wriggled slightly as he said in a cold voice, "Open your dog eyes and look clearly for me. Whitebeard, even if you're senile, you should recognize this symbol. This is the world's aristocrat Royce South, Saint." Pointing to the unique symbol of the celestial dragons on Dustless, the 5 honored stars holding the saber said solemnly. This old guy. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes swept over the head of the 5 honored stars holding the saber, and the corner of his mouth raised a cold arc. He naturally understood the meaning of the old man's words. Celestial dragons. The hope in Whitebeard's eyes was suddenly extinguished and replaced by an unprecedented gloominess. His eyes were cold and murderous, and the sun dream in his heart also disappeared. Not only that, the sun dream turned into a strong hatred, and an unprecedented negative emotion filled his mind, and the huge iron fist creaked. As a close friend of the Pirate King Roger, Whitebeard also knows some unknown secrets. The master behind Marine is the world government, and the master of the world government is the celestial dragons who claim to be a god. This ancient species looks down on all living things from the perspective of God. If they want Dustless to become a mortal's son, this problem can be imagined. Therefore, the moment he learned that Dustless was a celestial dragon, the hope in Whitebeard's heart disappeared with the wind. The son, who died on the island, was the doing of the world government. As the top boss of the world government, Dustless naturally can't get away with it. Let me see what's so great about your group of gods. His pupils widened and Whitebeard grinned. The place where his eyes focused was impressively Dustless. His big fist was clenched tightly and suddenly cracks appeared in the space around Dustless. Ka. The spiderweb-like cracks extended rapidly and a solemn atmosphere spread. The places covered by the cracks in space were all dead silent. It's really a dangerous old man. The deep ink-like eyes stared at the cracks that extended without limit, and the fear in Dustless's eyes flashed away. It's not groundless to call him the strongest man in the world. Especially now, Whitebeard is still in his peak period. Not daring to be arrogant, Dustless's aura surged and rushed up, and the extremely oppressive aura soared straight into the sky, and everyone's heart was pressed by a huge rock. Where on earth did he cultivate such a terrifying murderous aura? Carefully sizing up Wu Qin, who was seething with murderous aura, the expression of the bald Quenlo Xing who was holding the sword slightly changed. In the unseen world, he seemed to hear the sharp screech of the ghost. After thinking for a long time, the thousands of doubts in his heart also dissipated like a breeze. This is also good. The current rotten battle situation really needs a strong combat power to change. The dry cracked mouth was filled with a smile of conspiracy success, and the bald Gorosei holding the sword was proud in his heart. Looking at Dustless's eyes, there was also a little more banter and ridicule. No matter how strong you are just a pawn in the hands of this old man. Chapter 428. In the void that couldn't be touched, a circle of ripples spread out, followed by cracks visible to the naked eye, rapidly extending in a swallowing manner. So far, Tremor fruit, Gura no Mi, is the most powerful fruit that has appeared in the Paramecia. It has the powerful power to destroy the world. Even a slight use can cause violent vibrations, and even exaggerated earthquakes and tsunamis. Whitebeard, who has been using Tremor fruit, Gura no Mi, for most of his life, is naturally very proficient in using it. Combined with his strong physique, he naturally exerts the power of Tremor fruit, Gura Gura no Mi, incisively and vividly. In terms of pure strength, I'm afraid that if he claims to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. If it's really a god, then let me see it. Otherwise, don't use this name to scare people in the future. With a sneer at the corner of his mouth, Whitebeard's huge body looked down at Dustless, who was alone. His strength and momentum continued to rise. After brewing for a while, he then punched out mercilessly. Ka ka ka, the space shattered like a mirror and countless cracks were densely swallowing. The fierce strength rushed out of the space and turned into an unprecedented storm. The place where the air wave passed was a mess, and the solid ground was forcibly torn apart. His pupils narrowed slightly, and his hands surged with a blazing temperature, and an ancient aura followed, full of unspeakable heat. Dustless's hands suddenly fell to the ground, and with a roar, the sky instantly turned crimson. Uchiha Flame Formation. A crimson flame barrier broke out of the ground and reached the sky, exuding a blazing temperature. The flowing air was boiling and bubbling because of this barrier composed of lava, and white strips of boiling gas were clearly visible. It was just a small barrier, but it gave people the feeling that it separated the two worlds. Behind the enchantment, Wu Chen's expression was indifferent, and his eyes were deathly still. Boom boom boom, an intense tremor suddenly came. Looking up, formless shockwaves continuously bombarded the flame barrier. They were like endless waves creating a huge commotion. With each wave of merciless bombardment, the flame barrier condensed from magma trembled, faintly emitting a sorrowful cry. The sky suddenly turned crimson, and the flame barrier that almost connected the sky to the ground attracted everyone's attention. Magma fruit user Sakazuki Akainu had a fanatical look on his face, his murderous eyes filled with fascination. As a magma fruit user, he could naturally sense the extraordinariness of it. Staring at the dark red enchantment covering the sky, Akainu couldn't keep calm. Inspiration suddenly flashed in his mind, and he made up his mind to develop a new trick later. Scary, scary, being burned by that. The frivolous Borsellino Kazar's old face froze, and the words that were about to come out of his mouth came to an abrupt end. Looking at his line of sight, he saw that he had been ravaged in succession. In the end, the flame barrier exploded. The crimson sky returned to normal, and the temperature of the air was maintained at a normal level. The fireworks are finally over. How can a barrier as thin as a cicada's wing withstand my attack? As expected, you so-called gods don't live up to your name. Boom boom boom. The sharp sword in his hand slammed on the ground, and the earth immediately shook, splashing countless dust. Whitebeard looked up to the sky and laughed. Old man, you're still talking big and you're not afraid of biting your tongue? Old man, there is a phrase called extreme joy begets sorrow. In the smoke and dust, a thin and tender figure slowly stepped out, with delicate features, casually brushed the dust off his body, and then looked directly at Whitebeard with cold eyes. You, who have been silent for a long time, have lost the heart to keep up with the times. If you are so arrogant, sooner or later you will be swept into the dust of history. Looking at Whitebeard without fear, Dustless casually whispered. Extreme joy begets sorrow? I only believe in extreme misfortune. Hearing that, Whitebeard looked at him coldly, his face was full of sneers and his strength skyrocketed. Now he was only in his 50s and he still had plenty of physical strength. Just as he was about to annihilate the Tenryubito in front of him, Dustless made a slight movement, but Whitebeard froze and the raised fist fell and the offensive stopped. The right eye changed. Blue eye. What ability does this Tenryubito kid have? Whitebeard's heart fell to the bottom and his eyes, which were closed in advance, opened again. He instinctively thought that Dustless would use the scarlet eyes that he used against Kaido again, so he closed his eyes. According to the current situation, it was obvious that he thought too much. Armament Haki Hardening. Even so, Whitebeard can be sure that the blue eyes are some kind of ability, and there is a dimensional gap between them and the eyes of normal human beings. Without hesitation, he opened his Haki defense to prepare for the unexpected. Under the sun, Whitebeard turned into a dark iron man. Why do you all know this trick? Seeing this, Dustless's mouth twitched and he was speechless. Only then did he remember that Armament Haki and Observation Haki seem to be the universal abilities of all human beings. These top big pirates don't know how to use Armament Haki, it is a fantasy. Even so, it is still particularly tangled. Red Hair Shanks and Hawkeye, including Whitebeard now, obviously have their own Armament Haki have reached an incredible level, and they can arm their whole body at will. Kid, you can use all the means you have. A loud voice came out of his mouth, and armament hockey-hardened Whitebeard was full of confidence. As you wish. Hearing this, Dustless's face was cold, and his palm was raised toward Whitebeard, and his mouth was swept with a cold smile, and the chakra in his body went berserk. An invisible impact came out of Dustless's palm. Boom, a heavy strike that couldn't be touched came head-on. When it came into contact with Whitebeard, he was still in an unconscious state. He was directly swallowed up by a strange energy fluctuation and was forced back again and again, vomiting blood. Chapter 429. A black shadow was simply thrown away by the tyrannical force, and the huge body crushed several hills in succession. The dark and robust body was unstoppable and more ferocious than the divine sword. On the ground, one could see a pole mark extending hundreds of meters away. Naturally, it was left by Whitebeard, who was sent flying. Is it the impact of hitting the air? It seems to be the same as the ability of Sengoku. In the deep pit, Whitebeard grinned in surprise. The pain all over his body made his face hideous. Even with the defense of armament hockey, his lungs and chest were severely damaged. Trying to move his feet, an indescribable tingling spread all over his body. He's still alive. That's right, he's a Yonko for emperors, and he's still one of the best among them. It's reasonable that he can resist. The black spot in the distance gradually enlarged and finally fell to the ground. It was Dustless who was talking to himself. He smiled and looked at Whitebeard, who was covered in blood but was still sharp. He gave a thumbs up and said, "Worthy of being the strongest man in the world." The sarcasm in his mouth can be heard by anyone. Sharp-tongued brat, if you have the ability to continue to use it, if you have the guts to kill me. Looking at Dustless without fear, Whitebeard was full of energy. It's not difficult to hear from his saturated tone that he really has no big problem. Armament hockey has reached the level of Whitebeard, and his body's toughness is far beyond the imagination of the world. In the later generations, he can resist the soft and hard pestering of the 3 admirals and countless marines. Now he is full of energy and extremely durable. Kill you? It's not what you want. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled casually with a mysterious smile on his mouth. Royce South, please understand the situation. Whitebeard is one of the 3 pirates. After killing him, the antiques of the previous era will also mean the complete end. The Gorosei who rushed over said bitterly. He couldn't wait to break Whitebeard's body and then said, after killing him, you can also change the world's view of Tenryubito. You will also become a great hero and be praised by the civilians who are oppressed by pirates all over the world. The Gorosei who galloped over tempted Dustless, and his tone was full of endless magic. Praise me? I'm afraid he'll be scolded badly. Dustless sneered again and again. This bald man really thought that Dustless was an inexperienced kid. Not to mention killing Whitebeard, even if he overthrew the world government, the civilians who had been ravaged by the celestial dragons for hundreds of years would not thank Dustless. Hundreds of years of hatred could not be solved by a mere Dustless. Moreover, Dustless did not care. I didn't say that I would help your world government clean up pirates, and Dustless glanced at the bald-headed quintet elder stars who had a stiff expression while holding a sword. A strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He laughed softly and said, I'm going to stop now. You can leave safely, Whitebeard. Dustless's words were like a level 10 storm, making Whitebeard and the 5 honored stars holding the saber stare blankly. Obviously they had not recovered from their shock. Louis South, Saint, are you kidding me? Hearing this, the corners of his mouth twitched fiercely. The 5 honored stars holding the saber almost vomited blood. He resisted the anger in his heart and spat at Dustless. If the world government collapses, the celestial dragons will not have a good time. The existence of the world government is the foundation of protecting the celestial dragons. For fear that Dustless would not understand the powerful relationship, the 5 honored stars holding the saber explained seriously. Kidding? Do you think I'm kidding? Staring at the 5 honored stars holding the saber, Dustless asked faintly. His tone was calm and he said bluntly, It's not impossible for me to do it, but your world government has to promise me 10 conditions. Regardless of the 5 honored stars whose face was getting darker and darker, Dustless said to himself, Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom and Red Hair Shanks, these people originally added up to 12 conditions. But for the sake of us being on the same ship, I will discount it to 10 for your world government. Dustless's clear eyes stared at the 5 honored stars holding the saber, and he said seriously, 10 conditions? You celestial dragons have enough privileges, what else do you want? In your dreams. Without thinking, the 5 honored stars holding the saber directly refused in a cold voice. And when Whitebeard saw that Dustless was slow to make a move, he also turned around and swaggered away. Seeing this, the heart of the bald 5 elder stars holding the saber twitched. His complexion was ashen and extremely gloomy. The world government and the celestial dragons are bound together for good or ill. The image of the world government has fallen, and the celestial dragons naturally follow the bad luck. Looking at Dustless's eyes, the 5 honored stars holding the saber raised his voice, and in his words there was a warning. If the world government is destroyed, all the privileges of the celestial dragons will vanish. And according to human nature, I am afraid that the celestial dragons who have been arrogant for hundreds of years will be the first to be slaughtered. This has nothing to do with me. Even if that group of people die, it has nothing to do with me. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled and then sneered, "What's more, your world government has lost a lot of face. I don't see them talking about the celestial dragons." The world government has been slapped in the face countless times. Among them, Joel D. Roger became the Pirate King, which was the biggest provocation to the world government. Ordinary civilians didn't talk about the celestial dragons, but they abused the incompetence of the world government. Staring at Whitebeard's back that was getting farther and farther away, the 5 honored stars' old face flashed a touch of entanglement. After thinking about it, the hesitation on the old face was replaced by determination. He gritted his teeth and said, "Let's hear it. I expected you to be like this." With a hazy smile on his face, Dustless leaned close to the 5 honored star's ear and said his conditions. The latter's face changed greatly when he heard this, and regardless of their identities, he suddenly turned hostile. "You're dreaming, do you know what you're talking about? Royce South, holy? These secret contents, even as a celestial dragon, you have no right to know." Chapter 430. The Gorosei with the sword was full of anger. Dustless just casually said 2 conditions, but it was already difficult for him to accept them. After saying all the conditions, he might break out in anger. "For you, these 2 conditions should not be worth mentioning. Catch those big pirates, improve your government and Marines' WeChat, which is more important, you think about it yourself." Dustless was not in a hurry. Whitebeard has nothing to do with his life and death. If he wants him to do something, he can't do it without some conditions. People are selfish. Guru, when he was about to teach Dustless a lesson, the Den Mushi suddenly rang. The Gorosei with the sword looked slightly stiff, and then he took out the Den Mushi from his chest. "Sir." Before he spoke, the impatient voice on the other side of the Den Mushi sounded first. The Gorosei with the sword was stunned. He could hear from this uneasy tone that it was not a good thing. "Marine headquarters, Marlin is being attacked by countless big pirates in turn." Sure enough, the next content really made the Gorosei with the sword's brain short-circuit, and his thinking stopped. There was a roar in his mind. Who on earth did this? The anger in his heart was enough to burn the whole sky. The Gorosei with the sword's eyes were scarlet, and his fists were creaking. He forced himself to calm down and asked coldly. "This?" Hearing this, the voice on the other side of the Den Mushi was obviously hesitant. There were too many pirates coming suddenly, and there was no way to know who ordered them. All in all, a large group of pirates were rushing to attack Marin Multitude. Pucci. "Hey!" The sound of a body being minced suddenly came from the other end of the phone, followed by a sinister and wild laughter. The laughter was overbearing and arrogant, looking down at the heavens. "Good method, besieging way to save Zhao. This is a beautiful move. All the high-end combat power of the Marine is gathered here. Marlin in the headquarters is in a state of emptiness. The top masters are rare and there are very few who can play a decisive role." He couldn't help but secretly admire the means of the behind-the-scenes mastermind. Dustless frowned. The owner of the strange voice on the phone seemed familiar. "Golden Lion Shiki? How dare you?" The 5 honored stars holding the saber immediately recognized the owner of the savage voice. The murderous aura all over their body uncontrollably erupted with a loud bang. Their bodies overflowed with blood-red lightning, and the smell of blood could be smelled when they breathed. The scene was extremely terrifying. Even Dustless was slightly taken aback by the surging murderous aura. First-generation Ghost Blade, the strongest demon blade, it truly lives up to its name. Dustless's eyes flashed with greed. Although he didn't know anything about swordsmanship, he knew that this blade was extraordinary. It was a peerless divine weapon that could cut iron like mud. It was much more difficult to control than Hawkeye's Black Blade Knight. Although they were both part of the 12 great sword techniques, the first-generation Ghost Blade was truly the strongest demon sword, while Hawkeye's Knight didn't have any demon chi. Kiki. I've disappeared for so many years, but you old fogies still recognize me. To be honest, this old man is more or less flattered. Golden Lion's voice came through the den mushy. His sarcastic tone was obviously mocking the world government. Only Golden Lion would dare to ridicule one of the Gorosei in this world. You're still so arrogant even with your legs broken. If you're caught next time, I'm afraid you'll be killed on the spot. Hearing this, the 5 honored stars also chose to ridicule him. At the same time, they looked at Whitebeard's disappearing back and their eyes flashed with murderous intent. He naturally knew about the friendship between Whitebeard and Shiki. As one of the 3 legendary pirates, they were not only rivals, but they were also friends despite the difference in age. I've traversed the seas for half of my life. Do you think I'll be scared? Golden Lion was not afraid of the world government. He won't attack the Marine headquarters again. Even if the world government's power is all over the world, he is fearless. A pirate lives alone and has nothing to worry about. Naturally, there is no need to fear the world government. Don't forget, the land under my feet is called Marlin Plenty. Let the Marine fend for themselves. Regardless of the 5 honored stars with swords, Golden Lion Shiki's powerful roar resounded over Marlin Plenty, and the former was desperate. Little ones, flatten Marlin Plenty. Ouch! Following Golden Lion Shiki's order, the world on the other side suddenly boiled up. Countless sounds of fighting resounded through the sky, accompanied by a burst of inhumane sounds. There is no doubt that it is the Marine who is being trampled. The Marine headquarters is under attack, and we must return immediately. Marlin Plenty, the symbol of absolute justice, has been sunk. Even if we catch all these pirates alive, it doesn't make sense. Fleet Admiral Kong's voice was depressed. He was holding a den mushy in his bloody hand. Obviously, he also received the news that the Marine headquarters was under attack. I naturally know this. If the Marine headquarters is sunk, I naturally understand what it means. The 5 honored stars with swords were gloomy. If the Marine headquarters is sunk by Shiki, the consequences will be unimaginable. Marlin Plenty is the most righteous place in the world. The fall means that the word justice will no longer exist. Damn Whitebeard, damn Shiki. Fleet Admiral Kong couldn't control the corner of his mouth and cursed fiercely. He felt extremely miserable. I am afraid that he is the only fleet admiral in history who was captured during his term of office. The name of incompetence is confirmed. Cough. Just as the 5 honored stars with swords and Fleet Admiral Kong were discussing how to deal with the aftermath and end the failed war, a harsh and unnatural cough sounded. Looking up, it was Dustless with a smile on his face, and the smile on his face was no different from a fox. This bastard is more hateful than Whitebeard and Golden Lion Shiki. The face of the 5 honored stars with swords twitched, and the black lines hanging on his forehead were clearly visible. Dustless's smug look was obviously saying silently, "Come and beg me, come quickly." Chapter 431. The bald Gorosei with the sword looked at the sword in his hand and his eyes flashed with a touch of sadness. In such a predicament he could only let Dustless blackmail him. You go and drag that group of people, then I will send someone to support the Marine headquarters. With a gloomy cold light in his eyes, the bald Gorosei with the sword directly ordered. His firm tone was resolute and irresistible. But Marlin Plenty? Fleet Admiral Kong's rough face flashed with some dissatisfaction. The Marine headquarters is going to sink. What's the use of capturing these big pirates alive? Which one is more important? And the most important thing is that they may not be able to capture this group of pirates alive. There are more pirates on the island with a bounty of more than 100 million berries. Before, Volcano used the power rock to eliminate tens of millions of minions. Marlin Plenty will be safe and sound. Shiki the Golden Lion will never escape the world government's inescapable net. After capturing him alive this time, he will be executed directly like Roger. His eyes flashed with scarlet blood and he waved his hand impatiently. The tone of the Gorosei with the sword showed a little anger. But, that's the best. Fleet Admiral Kong, who wanted to ask more questions, shut up. The world government has been established for more than 800 years and there are countless emergency measures. When Marlin Plenty really sinks, it's not too late to ask. Especially now that the Gorosei with the sword is on the verge of going berserk, angering him will definitely not end well. With a cold look, He resolutely turned his head and walked towards the large number of pirates behind him. His huge iron fist suddenly turned into a dark steel fist, which was powerful enough to smash any hill. This is also returning to the original owner. Seeing Fleet Admiral Kong's back getting farther and farther away, the bald Gorosei with the sword looked up at the sky and sighed. He looked at the first-generation ghost blade in his hand with a complicated expression. The reluctance in his eyes was clear. Then he remembered Shiki's arrogant and proud laughter. He bit his teeth and threw the first-generation ghost blade in his hand to Dustless. One of the two conditions that Dustless proposed to him before included the first-generation ghost blade. The strongest demon blade. Returning to the original owner, is it possible that this blade used to be in the hands of the celestial dragons? Other than eating, drinking, playing, and collecting strange things, they don't seem to have any other strengths. Taking the first-generation ghost blade from the hands of the 5 Elder Stars, Dustless asked in confusion. Clang. Stroking the ancient scabbard, Dustless nodded in satisfaction. Immediately, his expression became stern as he pulled out the first-generation ghost blade, revealing the cold gleam of the blade. A large amount of negative emotions invaded his mind in an attempt to control him. Eroded by negative emotions, Dustless's eyes turned blood red. His body was filled with murderous intent, and he was no different from a beast in human skin. No wonder it's called the evilest demonic blade. Under the influence of this negative energy, if I lose myself, I'll probably become a walking corpse that's obsessed with killing. If you want to corrupt me with such insignificant negative energy, you must be dreaming. As Dustless's voice fell, an even purer wave of negative emotions poured into his mind. It was like a vast and majestic river, easily suppressing and swallowing the negative emotions that had entered Guiche's mind. The blood-red eyes that were full of hostility once again returned to a deep black color. Sharingan's evilness is worse than yours. Staring at the straight blade in his hand, Dustless said calmly. At the same time, he carefully felt the changes of the first-generation ghost blade. After a while, he opened his eyes. As recorded in the legend, there is indeed an evil blade spirit sealed in the blade. I did get this blade from your celestial dragons. As you said, the interest of celestial dragons is to collect all kinds of things that they like and are interested in. All kinds of slaves, all kinds of diamonds, and all kinds of famous blades. There are also celestial dragons who like to collect them. Seeing that Dustless easily controlled the first-generation ghost blade's demonic energy, the 5 Elder Stars were calm as water. In your hands it will not be buried. This is natural, the gold that was buried before will rebloom with its own luster. Dustless's casual words directly made the 5 Elder Stars' face twitch. This implied that during the period when the first-generation ghost blade was in his hands, it had been buried in the soil. This was a direct slap in his old face. That's true. After thinking about it for a while, the bald Quintet Elder Stars did not deny it. During the period when he had the first-generation ghost blade until now, the number of real battles was very few. It could not even be counted with one hand. To some extent, it was like an ornament that accompanied him all day long. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is a disgrace to the glory of the first-generation ghost blade. The second condition, after returning to Mariehua, I will send someone to deliver it. His old face was replaced by a painful color. That was the information that the government spent hundreds of years to collect, and it was cheated by Dustless so casually. He naturally felt unbalanced in his heart. It has always been the world government that slaughters others, and they, the 5 Elder Stars, sit on the heads of others to talk about conditions. This feeling of being slaughtered is really uncomfortable. You should know the importance of that kind of thing, and what kind of chaos it will cause if it is exposed to the world. Thinking of how sensitive Wu Chen was when he asked for things, the 5 Elder Stars of Light still instructed him with a heavy heart. The world government had been operating for more than 800 years, and countless inhumane and dark things had been done secretly. Once it was exposed, the shock it would cause would definitely be unprecedented. But as a corresponding condition, you must keep Mariehua intact. In addition, you must capture the bastard Golden Lion Shiki alive. This old man will kill him with his own sword. Talking about Golden Lion Shiki, the pale face of the 5 Elder Stars of Light suddenly collapsed, gloomy like water. His eyes were about to crack, and he gnashed his teeth in hatred. Whitebeard is hateful, but compared to Golden Lion, who dared to take the initiative to attack the Marine headquarters, Whitebeard is much more lovely and kind. As you wish. The void in front of Dustless suddenly began to distort, forming a small vortex, overflowing with suction force, sucking his whole body in. Chapter 432. Above the island, there were no clouds for thousands of miles and it was clear. The bright sun shrouded this pure land. The marine headquarters, known as the most righteous place in the world, Marlindo. The only difference was that the ground of Marlindo reflected countless black spots. Looking up, there were countless broken ridges floating in the void or small particles like stones, or stones larger than a person, among which there were many super buildings and even large marine warships floating. This unprecedented scene was extremely terrifying. They densely covered the entire expanse of space, and a pitch-black shadow appeared in the expanse of space that was supposed to be bright and sunny. The black shadow covered the area, and all the marines had a huge mountain in their hearts, their faces were dead and their colorless pupils were dead. Golden Lion Shiki, a despicable villain who took advantage of the situation. In the office of the Marine Fleet Admiral, Tsuru's old face was filled with despair, and her old palms were sweating. Even if she had wisdom above the entire marine, in the face of such embarrassment, she couldn't change anything. In the face of absolute power, even if you have thousands of wisdom, in the face of all kinds of obstacles flying in the sky, it is useless. This exaggerated large-scale super attack, even an admiral can only look at it and sigh. The one with such ability is naturally the legendary existence of one of the three pirates, Golden Lion Shiki. At the beginning, Golden Lion wanted to join forces with Roger to rule the world, but the latter refused his proposal. Golden Lion was so angry that he launched a fierce decisive battle with Roger, which was known as the Battle of Eight Wall. Roger's pirates, who were originally at the end of the road, were saved by a sudden storm. Garp, Sengoku, and Z, including the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars, all think that they are fishermen who reap the benefits of others. In fact, they are also prey in the eyes of others. They always think that they are omnipotent and in control of everything. The Marines and the world government are really ridiculous. A strong figure stood calmly in the air, looking down at Malinduo. He had a cigar in his mouth, and his bronze skin accentuated his strong physique. He looked majestic without being angry. This man, he has everything of a lion, the hair of a lion, the inviolable majesty of a lion. Not only that, but he also has the ambition and courage of a lion roaring in the four seas and swallowing the world. Golden Lion, do you really have to be so ruthless? I can guarantee that you won't be affected by the marine for the next half of your life. If you destroy Marlin today, you should know what it means. A powerful voice came with a warning. The person who spoke was Vice Admiral Tsuru, who was in the attic of the Marine headquarters. Looking up at the Golden Lion in the sky, as well as the floating objects that supported his power, Lieutenant General Tsuru clearly lacked confidence, but she still clenched her teeth and insisted. She was also from Roger's era, so she was naturally not afraid of the Golden Lion. This suggestion is really stupid. Hearing this, Golden Lion's ferocious face revealed a mocking expression. You are also a figure of the previous era. During this period we have fought more than dozens of times. Don't you know my character? Do you think I, the Golden Lion Shiki, am that kind of person to live in obscurity? The merciless sarcasm made Lieutenant General Tsuru speechless. The ambition of the Golden Lion Shiki to conquer the world would not be extinguished just because of the discomfort brought by the aging of his body and the chopping off of his legs. Disappear, Marine. With the roar of the Golden Lion Shiki, all kinds of floating objects in the sky surged violently, and immediately, under the horrified gaze of everyone, they fell like a rainstorm. Boom! Dozens of dazzling white lights rose from the ground and swept straight towards the floating objects falling from the sky, setting off a huge explosion. Many of the large floating objects were dismembered, turning into tiny fragments. Most of the marine elites followed Fleet Admiral Kong to encircle Whitebeard and others. There were still many strong people in the marine headquarters, and they all showed their power and destroyed the falling floating objects. The mentality of daring to challenge fate was good, but the reality was cruel. Even if they tried their best in the face of the boundless super-large floating objects, they could only helplessly watch the slowly falling floating objects in horror. All the Marines were in despair. Just when everyone lost all confidence, a cold low voice sounded throughout the Marlin, like a breeze, dispelling the panic in the hearts of all the Marines. Chibaku Tensei. Simple and casual words fell lightly to the ground, but the world changed with it. The falling floating objects stopped, and not only that, but they also strangely floated up. An unprecedented supergravity enveloped the entire Marlin. The sudden appearance of the gravitational force was extremely mysterious. The floating objects that fell down were all reabsorbed into the sky and slowly floated up. Every blade of grass, every tree, and every piece of debris in Marlin was not affected by the gravitational force. Obviously, it was deliberately aimed at these floating objects. Bastard, who did this? His proud face suddenly became gloomy, staring at the large floating objects rising again. Golden Lion Shiki's voice filled with endless killing intent exploded throughout the sky. At the same time, his observation haki was released, and the entire Marlin situation was taken into his eyes. In less than a few breaths, a strange figure also floating in the sky came into his eyes. Celestial dragons? This is rare. After perceiving the clothes of the person who came, his old face full of anger was quickly replaced by surprise, and then surged with deep killing intent. Bullshit, celestial dragons, your God identity is useless to me. I never thought that the identity of celestial dragons would be useful to you. The indifferent voice of Gujing resounded through the sky, and a dark shadow covered the sky. Golden Lion Shiki was stunned and looked up. At this moment, an unprecedented meteorite came straight to him. Chapter 433. The majestic meteorite covered the sky and the earth, like a dark cloud covering the sun, and its volume was immeasurable. Golden Lion Shiki's ferocious face always remained calm, and even the corner of his mouth was leisurely blowing smoke rings. Suddenly, he looked at the meteorite that was smashing towards him without fear, and the contempt in the corner of his mouth was obvious. Stupid little devil, you are arrogant just because you have a little strength. This old man's ability is to restrain this kind of thing. Little devils who don't even have teeth should go home and drink milk. The thick and rough lips were raised high, and Golden Lion Shiki's face was full of arrogance. The cigar in his hand was put back into his mouth, and under everyone's horrified gaze, he did not retreat, and his whole body rushed forward. Seeing this, Dustless also frowned, and immediately his brows relaxed, looking at the scene in front of him with interest. It turned out to be him. Maybe the Marines can be saved, but the sword in his hand. Staring at Dustless in the sky, Vice Admiral Tsuru recognized Dustless at a glance. After all, she had met Mariewa once before, and the sword in Dustless's hand attracted her attention. You can even take his beloved sword from his old man? The old wrinkled face was full of interest, and Vice Admiral Tsuru said incredulously. Being able to take his precious sword from the hands of the 5 Elder Stars was equivalent to killing him directly. What kind of monster is that guy, and he really stopped such a big meteorite? Suddenly, there was a deafening sound of astonishment from the ground, resounding through the sky. Marlin's many Marines looked at the thin figure that blocked the meteorite. It was Golden Lion Shiki with a cigar in his mouth, and he even resisted the erosion of the meteorite with one hand. You want to hit me with this kind of little thing? The powerful and advantageous lion roar resounded through the world, containing an indescribable special power, lingering between heaven and earth for a long time before dispersing. The arrogant tone revealed sarcasm and disdain, and everyone could hear it. Everyone knows that I'm a float fruit user. You still want to hurt me with this kind of attack? I really don't know if you're too naive or too stupid. Dustless's hand suddenly exerted force, and the huge meteorite began to move again. The only difference was that the person being hit this time was Dustless himself. Serves you right for shooting yourself in the foot. With a playful smile on his face, Golden Lion Shiki controlled the giant meteorite and smashed it towards Dustless. He was a floating float fruit user. He could make himself or objects float in the air without gravity, and he could also control objects, non-living things, that he had touched to float. Floating objects can be controlled to attack enemies. What a strange ability. It doesn't even seem to have a limit, Dustless asked in astonishment as ripples appeared in his calm eyes, quietly spreading out like water ripples. Everyone knew about the meteorite body formed by the Chibaku Heavenly Star. That's a pretty good ability. The astonished look returned to its original state. The materials used to make the Chibaku Heavenly Star were taken from the hands of Golden Lion Shiki. It was barely reasonable that he could control the Chibaku Heavenly Star. Raising his eyes, Dustless stared at the slowly approaching meteorite, and he didn't avoid it. Raising his palm high and aiming at the center of the meteorite, his deep black eyes turned into the blue Tensigen, and a turbulent repulsive force shot out from the palm of his hand. Boom, boom, boom. The meteorite condensed by naval battleships and buildings burst in an instant, and the powerful and irresistible force easily annihilated it. The debris in the sky fell with the collapse of the meteorite, turning into small particle-like fragments. The dark clouds covering the sky became clear again. Bathed in the fresh sunlight, Marlin's many navies felt relieved. There was a meteor floating in the sky, it might fall at any time. No one could let go of the fear of the meteor that covered Marlin. Is it a strong impact caused by hitting the air? Golden Lion Shiki's tone was uncertain, his brows wrinkled, and his two thick black eyebrows were even solidified together. He couldn't help but think of one of his old enemies, the Warring States of Buddha, and his ability was the same. The same ability, even the same trick, was to raise the palm of his hand to produce a strong impact. Suddenly, there was a strange energy fluctuation behind him. Golden Lion Shiki's thinking face solidified, and it was replaced by a boiling, killing intent. It turned into a hurricane-like raging, and in the blink of an eye, it crossed layers of the void. War wave. The sword tied to his right foot kicked out a cold light, and an awe-inspiring slash followed. The huge slash cut through the thorns, and the harsh roar resounded through the sky, and the whole sea was buzzing, making people's scalp numb and their ears dizzy. Although I'm a dabbler in kendo, I don't use the skills of kendo, but the corner of his mouth swept into a strange smile, and his eyes overflowed with scarlet cold light. Dustless did not show weakness, and the first-generation ghost blade came out of the scabbard, and a scarlet-red slash was waved. Condensing my own power into a blade and then slashing it out is still easy. The rough red light pulsed with a demonic halo, and there was no skill at all. It was the purest power, and then it was swung out with all the strength of the body. Even so, the power was still amazing. Boom, boom, boom. The red and white light intertwined, setting off a strong impact, and a blade-like airwave spread out, and the lazy clouds in the sky were scattered. Vulgar, ordinary people who only know how to pretend to be cultured. Seeing such a situation happening, Golden Lion Shiki's old face turned green. His slash of a kendo master was offset by a rookie who had just entered the door. This was a direct slap to his old face. The first-generation ghost blade. It's a waste for such a vulgar person like you to hold it. With a greedy light in his eyes, Golden Lion Shiki roared out like a cannonball. The swordsman's love for the sword was not easy to feel. Now that he saw the peerless blade being ruined by a little brat, Golden Lion Shiki naturally wanted to save the first-generation ghost blade from the fire and water. Chapter 434. People are greedy. The so-called gentleman loves money and gets it through Tao. This kind of strange idea does not exist at all. The world in front of him pays attention to strength, and people with big fists can plunder everything. The world government can exploit the world because of its big fists, and the same is true for the industry of One Piece. Now Golden Lion Shiki feels that his fist is bigger than Dustless. He is a kendo master and Dustless is just a beginner. It is reasonable to rob him. It is a pity that such a good peerless artifact is ruined by a monk. Wishful thinking, old man. If you want to take the first-generation ghost blade, then come at me. I am afraid that your hands are not long enough. Dustless stared at the attacking Golden Lion Shiki without fear. He sneered coldly and at the same time, his eyes narrowed slightly, carefully looking at the two famous swords tied to his feet. It is naturally not an ordinary thing to be worthy of Golden Lion Shiki. Whiz. Without nonsense, he held the hilt with both hands, and his pupils focused on Golden Lion Shiki. The first-generation ghost blade fell, and a crimson sword pressure swept straight out. Insignificant skill. If the first-generation ghost blade were to be used by you, it would only bury his glory. Sensing the coldness of the incoming red light, the Golden Lion Shiki raised his head to the sky and laughed maniacally. With a domineering aura that looked down on everything, his shiny golden hair danced in the wind. He raised his right foot high, and another even more ferocious strike flew out. It was several times more ferocious than the previous white light. Boom, boom, boom. The void splashed out a ripple again, and the momentum of the silver chop was obviously slightly better. The previous two forces no longer offset each other, but simply swallowed and annihilated Dustless's chop. Like a beast that had eaten and drunk, the silver light became bigger, and with more ferocious force, it attacked Dustless. You are worthy of being the legendary great pirate. It is undeniable that in terms of kendo I am a beginner, and I am indeed not as good as you, a great pirate who has been on the sea for half of his life. After taking a deep breath and calming down his agitated heart, a strange arc appeared on his cracked lips. As a powerful energy wave descended, a powerful sound turned into a destructive light wave that spread out. However, this is only the aspect of being a swordsman. As for the other aspects, you are far too lacking. The materialized evil energy waves continued to erupt, and the skeleton holding Taiga of Light could be clearly seen. The simple long blade in its hand rose and fell, and a powerful blade wind followed. Kacha. Raising his head, he saw that the oncoming white slash was easily split into two. The saber wind was extremely awe-inspiring, leaving a mark in the void that would never dissipate. They could clearly see that the invincible blade wind had turned into thousands of cold lights, swallowing the Golden Lion Shiki, who was completely unaware. Armament Haki hardening. Golden Lion Shiki, who was aware of the rapid turn of the situation, used Armament Haki to strengthen his hardness for the first time, but he was still swallowed by the incoming hurricane. Puchi, any attack or defense has its bottom line, and the same is true for Armament Haki. Eroded by Kinsusanu, Golden Lion Shiki's chest had several blood stains. The same is true for his whole body, which easily tore apart the defense of Armament Haki. Bastard, I will not let you go. The gorgeous golden hair was messy like grass, messy like a chicken's nest, and the fierce eyes were obviously dim. Golden Lion Shiki was no longer as arrogant as before. Even so, his mouth was still full of provocation. The Golden Lion Shiki had inherited everything from the male lion. The lion's ferocity and wildness, the king's might that refused to admit defeat, and the unwillingness to fight to the death were all vividly reflected in his body. Being able to enter the marine headquarters alone, it can be seen from the side how arrogant Golden Lion is. Of course, it is undeniable that he does have the capital to be arrogant, whether it is strength or reputation. He can despise everything. It's very difficult to control the power. That old guy said that he would kill you himself, so you should obediently be captured so as not to suffer physical pain. Sighing helplessly, Wuxia tried to persuade him with kind words. Moreover, Kinsusanu's power is really difficult to control. Dustless, who is usually used to rough, naturally does not use it well. The previous chop has already reserved a lot of power. What a joke. You want me to resign myself to death, and I'm going to resign myself to death? Who do you think you are? Hearing this, Golden Lion's wild and unruly laughter resounded through the sky, but there was a faint sense of sadness. Throughout his life, the number of strong enemies he faced was countless. Who would have thought that things were changeable, and now he is going to lose to a level 1 celestial dragon. It is a shame to be defeated by a celestial dragon. They are the most incompetent garbage of human beings, and if they are captured alive, it will be the biggest stain on their reputation. They would rather die than be captured alive. Moreover, you have seen lions that have been captured alive, and the fearless death is their true portrayal. The ferocious look in his eyes did not diminish, and the powerful roar was filled with unprecedented determination. Golden Lion Shiki was bleeding all over. Under the reflection of the setting sun, his momentum was awe-inspiring and domineering, like a peerless god of war. The arrogance in his bones made people feel ashamed and bow their heads, not daring to look at him. It's just that all this is ridiculous in the eyes of Dustless. The portrayal of lions is fearless death? Crazy talk. I don't know which majestic lion was put into the deep-sea prison by Sengoku and Garp a few years ago. Looking at the Golden Lion Shurji in a mocking manner, Wuxia taunted him and unceremoniously exposed his scars. You are strong enough, but your mouth is even more despicable. The sarcastic words directly made Golden Lion's mouth twitch. The lion was willing to give up his life to protect his territory, but he was indeed captured alive almost 7 or 8 years ago. Don't you understand? You are a man who has been captured alive. Chapter 435. Even with Golden Lion Shiki's thick old face, he couldn't help but blush, especially the sentence, "You are a man who has been caught alive before," which directly made Golden Lion Shiki suffer internal injuries. The corner of his dry and cracked mouth once again showed red blood stains, which was much more serious than giving him a stab. "Little brat, I will tear you to pieces and burn your bones to ashes." The roar of the sky turned into a substantial action. Golden Lion Shiki chose to make the first move. Maybe he still had a chance to win, otherwise he would be directly killed by the vicious tongue attack. Both of his legs suddenly kicked forward forcefully, and 2 silvery white slashes whistled out. The sword slashes were sharp, and circles of ripples spread out in the space like a storm. "You are so old, but you don't know how to remember." Shaking his head, he looked at Golden Lion Shiki, who was covered in blood, and gave him a hopeless look. Dustless restrained his thoughts, and several hours passed quietly. Even if he was beaten by steel, he still needed to find the beautiful little slave girl at home to massage his legs and relax. If I want to get rid of you quietly, it's easier for Sharingan. As soon as he finished speaking, Wuxia gave off a much more sinister and gloomy feeling. Mysterious ripples spread out from his body. His scarlet pupils were focused on the two slashes that were speeding towards him. His lips slightly opened and the dry corner of his mouth slightly opened. The sky was suddenly shrouded in darkness, and there was a blazing heat for no reason. Amaterasu. Raising his head to take a look, he saw that the two chilling slashes that were whizzing over had been swallowed by the dark black flames. Layers upon layers of them were tightly wrapped, and they were swiftly being eroded. In less than a blink of an eye, the silver-white light weakened until it finally disappeared. Black flame, countless strange abilities, it's no different from the legendary devil fruit tree, any ability can be used at will. Cautiously looking at the black flame, Golden Lion Shiki clenched his fists, and his face was full of unwillingness. How could this kid get all the good things in the world by himself? It was really enviable. With a face full of jealousy, Golden Lion Shiki did not hide the covetous flame in his eyes. With Dustless's level of endless ability, he naturally had the idea of taking it for himself. You are right, my ability is absolutely unparalleled in the world. Hearing this, Dustless's face was filled with pride, and thousands of abilities gathered in one body. Even if it was a person who died, he could revive the other party with the ability to turn decay into magic. A little brat is a little brat. As long as an adult praises you, you will immediately get carried away. Seeing this, Golden Lion Shiki's face outlined a sinister smile, and at the same time, his thumb without a trace, a long spear that had been lurking on the ground for a long time rose from the ground, and it went straight to Dustless. Poochie? Dustless did not expect the Golden Lion Shiki to suddenly attack. Caught off guard, Dustless's left arm was directly scratched, leaving behind a scarlet mark. Blood flowed endlessly, but it was not a big deal. Funny, you think you can take my life by diverting the attention in such a vulgar way? Raising his head, Wuxia had a sneer on his face. This kind of injury was not worth mentioning to him. However, there was not a single person in sight. The Golden Lion Shiki had also disappeared without a trace. I never thought that kind of trick could take your life, so I will do it myself. A ghostly voice sounded behind him. Dustless was stunned and he looked back leisurely, but what was reflected in his eyes was a cold light sweeping down, and it was too late to retreat. Poochie. The cold light falling down easily cut off Dustless's arm, and the piercing pain and feeling of powerlessness spread through his limbs like a tide. Bastard. The eternal Manjikyu Sharingan rotated sharply, and the blood-red ruby-like eyes reflected a black irregular flame. When he was about to launch Amaterasu to swallow him whole, Golden Lion Shiki's disdainful voice came in advance. It's still that weird black flame. Don't underestimate my observation haki, it's a high-level observation haki, it's even rarer than Haoshiku haki. If I get hit by it again, it's simply unforgivable, Golden Lion Shiki said hoarsely, a sly smile swept across his mouth and his finger hooked again. On the ground, a sharp whistling sound rose from the ground, and it once again stabbed towards Dustless. Poochie? The sharp spear went straight into Dustless's body. Looking up, Dustless's whole body was pierced by the spear made of steel, and there was a bloody hole in his chest. Did you prepare all this in advance? His eyes dimmed, and Dustless, who was aware of the rapid loss of vitality, was pale, and his whole body was sweating involuntarily, and he was gasping and trembling. As you can see, I did prepare it in advance. I am a float fruit user. Before you came to the Marine headquarters, I set up a mechanism in advance, but I didn't expect it to be used. Speaking of this, Golden Lion Shiki's eyes showed the color of recollection, and immediately said, after wandering the world for many years, this old man has long practiced a heart that is prepared for a rainy day. You have this kind of end is not accidental, but inevitable. From the moment I fought with you, I met you like this because I have designed everything in advance. Golden Lion Haruke smiled proudly, and at the same time his hand fell and a cold light flashed through the void. Dustless's body was split into four and burst into blood mist. Next is your Marine headquarters. Even if there are many people, you can't save Marlindo from destruction. The shriveled dark hand spread out, aiming at Marlindo below the void, and just as he was about to launch his ability, a harsh teasing spread out and Golden Lion Shiki heard it clearly. It's unbelievable that I can see such a wonderful performance in the world of Tsukuyami. Unfortunately, a dream is a dream and an illusion will always be an illusion. As Dustless's voice fell, the world in front of him suddenly changed rapidly. Dustless, who had been torn apart, returned to his original position. Instead, it was Golden Lion Shiki himself who was panting like a dead dog. What kind of king sorcery did you use? Chapter 436. Gold Lion Shiji's face was ashen. His gloomy eyes spread out and took in all the movements around him. His previously smug expression turned gloomy, and his passionate heart fell to the bottom. A basin of cold water fell and extinguished Gold Lion Shiji's high and inflated confidence. He didn't know when, but he and Dustless had landed on the ground of the Marine headquarters, and the most terrible thing was that countless muzzles and swords were pointed at him. Witchcraft? To some extent, it is indeed witchcraft. Hearing this, Dustless didn't comment. The scene in front of him was similar to when he invaded Naruto's world with glinting fruit. These indigenous people simply couldn't understand the ability outside this world. All in all, it's completely over. Casually glancing at Golden Lion Shiki, Dustless simply flicked his sleeves and left. Regardless of the reaction of these Marines, the unique clothing logo of celestial dragons on his back and chest has already invisibly explained everything. The Marines were afraid of celestial dragons, so naturally, they didn't dare to ask more questions. They hoped that Dustless, the god of disaster, would quickly get out of here. Of course, Dustless also followed their thoughts and left after cleaning up Golden Lion. The Marines didn't like him and he also didn't like these Marines. Holy Land Mariehua is also the headquarters of the world government. Dustless was enjoying his afternoon tea. He looked relaxed as he laid on the couch and basked in the sun. Boa Hancock, who was wearing a black maid outfit, was waiting for him carefully. Her soft little hand rhythmically patted Dustless's calf, and the strength was very accurate. Obviously, it was not the first time she did this kind of thing. Even though Dustless was gentle and approachable, and usually didn't have the arrogance of celestial dragons, Boa Hancock still had a deep fear in her bones. Go down. Lazily closing his eyes, Dustless handed the delicate cup in his hand to Boa Hancock. Although his indifferent voice was soft, she didn't have the slightest resistance. She blinked her bright eyes and glanced at Dustless. Then she tactfully retreated quietly. After a while, Dustless opened his eyes again and looked indifferently at the void in front of him. Mariehua under the swirling clouds was beautiful, like a fairyland on earth, and the air was exceptionally fresh and natural. You're living such a comfortable life. You're drinking tea all day and your maids are waiting on you. The life of a second-generation heir has caused you to fall quite a bit. I'm so envious of you. In his mind, a light voice spread out. The pleasant sound of nature made people fall silent and unable to extricate themselves. In Dustless's memories, only the system Ling had such a mysterious and ethereal voice. About 16 or 17 years have passed. Before Dustless could react, the world before his eyes suddenly changed. The deep blue starry sky gave him a dreamy feeling. The surrounding space also changed rapidly. There were mountains and rivers on one side. At a glance, it was a lush green grassland. You're doing this, forget it. The corner of his mouth twitched without a trace. Dustless was speechless. He stared at the young black-haired girl who suddenly flashed in front of him. His eyes suddenly turned to the pavilion in the distance. Regardless of Linger, he walked straight over with a smile on his face. Once every 5 years, you can now draw 3 times with the number of times you have accumulated. The void in front of him splashed a faint ripple and Linger came out of thin air. Her deep eyes stared at Dustless. The looming figures in the pavilion in the distance were Dustless's little wife and her former subordinates. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about this. Hearing this, Dustless remembered that the reason why he was able to rise when he was young was because of the system's lottery. Without the system's unexpected appearance to break Dustless's cursed fate, he might have died. Let's start now. After taking a deep breath, Dustless looked forward to it and said calmly. The abilities in the system came from all the major planes in the vast universe. There were countless abilities and they contained all kinds of strange existences. Even though Dustless was now at the peak, some special abilities were still very useful to him. If that's the case, then let's start now. In front of Dustless, an unprecedented giant turntable appeared again. On it were recorded all kinds of abilities that had never been heard of before. The number was so densely packed that even Dustless was dazzled. Nodding slightly at Ling-er, Dustless signaled Ling-er to get ready. Ka. The giant turntable spun gently from slow to fast and from fast to slow again. This scene repeated for a few minutes before it stopped. The item that the javelin was pointing at also stunned Dustless. The shape was quite simple. It was a golden sun ball. It was extremely dazzling. At first glance, one could tell that it was not an ordinary item. However, the following 4 words attracted Dustless's attention. Gate of Babylon? Isn't this the ability of the nouveau riche? Thinking of the arrogant blonde man in a certain world, Dustless was quite surprised. He still remembered that Brother Shan Shan used this ability to defeat the other heroic spirits. But, what use does this thing have for me? Rolling his eyes, Dustless stared at Ling, who had an indifferent expression on her face. This ability was not bad, but it was useless to the current Dustless. She even said that this so-called Gate of Babylon was completely useless in Dustless's hands. Of course he might need it to pay the bill. It suits you very well. Your chakra and glint fruit are both golden. Now that you have the Gate of Babylon as a foil, it must be even more dazzling than the glint in your memory. Blinking her intelligent black eyes, Ling said softly with a hidden meaning. If you want to call me a nouveau riche, just say it. There's no need to beat around the bush. With his face twitching, Dustless said to Ling in a bad mood. At the same time he waved his hand and signaled Ling to continue the lottery. Although this so-called Gate of Babylon was very different from the ability Dustless imagined, it was still a decent ability. Just as Ling said, at least in the future, Dustless's ability would be more dazzling than Glint's. Chapter 437. The mysterious energy invaded his mind. Dustless was stunned for a moment, then chakra surged. Just as he was about to shake this unknown energy out of his mind, Ling gave him a calm look and stopped Dustless's action. Frowning, squinting his eyes and carefully feeling the source of the mysterious energy, Dustless's mouth raised into an interested smile. After a while he said in surprise, I thought this Gate of Babylon was useless. Now it seems that I underestimated its ability. With a wave of his hand, countless ripples splashed out in the space behind Dustless. The blue void was dyed golden, and countless divine weapons floated in the void behind Dustless. That's natural. Any ability varies from person to person. The strong will strengthen themselves and the weak will weaken themselves. Her eyes, which were as calm as autumn water, were filled with extraordinary splendor. With a little surprise, she raised her head and stared at the void behind Wuxia. All kinds of sharp divine weapons were clearly visible. Obviously, Dustless could skillfully control the Gate of Babylon, just after obtaining it. Let's continue, maybe we can get something good. Aware of the extraordinariness and power of the Gate of Babylon, Dustless also put away his dissatisfaction. The dazzling golden void behind him returned to blue, and the sky returned to tranquility. The huge circular turntable slowly turned again. Every time the javelin pointed at an item, Dustless's heart was like a monkey on a horse, and he couldn't help but drool. The skills in the system, even the most vulgar ones, were extraordinary. Ka. About a few minutes later the javelin stopped again. This time, it pointed at something that Dustless was quite familiar with. It was a silver devil fruit. A devil fruit that can shine? Seeing such a strange devil fruit, Dustless couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. The whole devil fruit was filled with some kind of mysterious light energy. If it wasn't for the description below, Dustless might not be able to recognize the true appearance of the devil fruit at a glance. Looking carefully, he could vaguely see that under the surface of light, there was a unique pattern of the devil fruit. Fruit of light. What are the abilities of this fruit? Frowning, Dustless asked. There were many types of devil fruits and there were countless unknown abilities. It was normal that he had not heard of the light fruit's ability. You'll have to figure it out yourself. But there's one thing that's worth confirming. Linger's jade-like hand gently pointed at the void, and a glowing silver devil fruit fell into her hand. It was the fruit of light that she had previously drawn. Since it's an ultimate devil fruit, it naturally has the ability to transcend. After saying that, the glowing silver fruit in his hand, the fruit of light, floated into Dustless's hand. To be called an ultimate devil fruit, it is indeed not an ordinary item. Gently nodding, Dustless was non-committal. Since it was the ultimate devil fruit, it was as bizarre as the surgeon fruit. It must have some kind of heaven-defying ability and incredible special effect. Especially the fruit of light in front of him. It gave off a feeling of vicissitudes and simplicity. It was full of vitality, but it also gave off a feeling of destruction. It's definitely much stronger than my glint fruit. With a sigh, Dustless couldn't help but be speechless. For a moment he regretted eating the glint fruit. Now he has 2 ultimate devil fruits in his hand, and their ability is definitely not worse than the glint fruit. Take the fruit of light in front of him as an example. It obviously contains the ability of light. The glint fruit also turns the physique into light, but there is no ultimate devil fruit. Divine power. There was a ripple in the void, and Dustless sucked the fruit of light into a different space. 3 lottery draws. 2 have been carried out just now, there's 1 left, continue? After obtaining 2 good things in succession, Dustless was also full of hope for the last draw. His eyes were as bright as stars, circling around the giant lottery turntable, and his eyes flashed with emotion from time to time. He used to live in the 3-dimensional era and had all kinds of heaven-defying abilities. This humble lottery turntable also exists, and it contains thousands of abilities in the universe. This is the last time. Glancing at Wu Qin, Linger's white and tender hand tapped lightly on the giant turntable that had stopped moving. Then it began to rotate again with a click-click-click sound. The dazzling and overwhelming variety of abilities slid across the pole one by one, making Wu Qin feel uncomfortable and tangled. After a few minutes of torment, the turntable stopped this time, and the ability of the pole made Dustless instantly petrified, motionless like a sculpture. Tricolor hockey. I can learn this ability by myself. Why do I need to draw a lottery? The corner of his mouth twitched fiercely, Dustless roared with a red face, and his spittle flew everywhere. He was extremely dissatisfied with this lottery. This native ability, he has no problem learning it by himself. The so-called tricolor hockey is armament hockey, observation hockey, and Haoshiku hockey. It's no wonder that Dustless found it so difficult to accept. In addition to Haoshiku hockey, which can be obtained through inheritance, armament hockey and observation hockey can be obtained through cultivation. It's a mass ability that everyone has. There are exceptions to everything. I can tell you clearly that you don't have Haoshiku hockey in your body. Don't always think that you are a special and unique existence. Glancing at Dustless faintly, ignoring his dissatisfaction, Ling-Er explained softly, "You come from a different world, and naturally you don't have the possibility of inheriting Haoshiku hockey, and people who awaken Haoshiku get it after a lot of tempering. So, you don't have this kind of king's qualification." Hearing this, Dustless's mouth squirmed, and when he was about to quibble, he was speechless. After the dissatisfaction in his expression disappeared, Wu Qin did not care about this problem. He was content with what he had. His ability was enough to overlook the whole world. Moreover, as Ling-Er said, only absolute oppression and tempering can awaken Haoshiku. In this world, people who can bring such a threat to Dustless are rare. To some extent, Dustless naturally does not have the possibility of awakening Haoshiku. Chapter 438. Looking at the peerless beauty with clear eyes, Dustless's face was filled with doubts. As Ling-Er said, not to mention that there is no Haoshiku hockey in his body, even if there is such a power, there are very few people who can awaken Dustless. Since you can't awaken Haoshiku, what's the use of it? With his eyes wide open, Dustless asked with more dissatisfaction, and the anger in his tone was not concealed. It's useless if you can't awaken Haoshiku. It's not difficult to awaken, but are you sure you want to awaken Haoshiku hockey? The dark ink-like eyes flashed with a fleeting playfulness. Looking at Dustless's face, Ling-Er's face was as usual, but there was a hint of teasing in her voice. "This is not nonsense, I can only make up for my devastated heart if I can awaken it." Hearing this, Dustless replied decisively without thinking. If he can't awaken Haoshiku, the third draw is meaningless. Kenbenshoku and Haoshiku are skills common to all human beings. That's what I'm waiting for. The sly smile on the delicate little face turned into a substantial action, and the vast and majestic breath gushed out, and the void behind her exploded into pieces in an instant. The supreme meaning emitted from the tender body, even if the void was broken, it did not dare to heal. It has been pulling the surrounding space and gradually enlarging the cracks. Ling-Er simply locked her momentum on Dustless and did not spread it. Otherwise what would happen is self-evident. The extremely oppressive majestic breath pressed on Dustless and Ling-Er suddenly attacked. Dustless, who was unaware of it, was forced to step back again and again. His elegant and handsome face was pale, and his body was shaking and almost fell to the ground. There is always someone better than you, and there is always a mountain higher than the other. Dustless now understands what it means. The thin Ling in front of him gave Dustless more pressure than any of his previous opponents. Even the life and death enemy of Naruto's world, Mara Yuki, was like a lonely boat in the sea, not worth mentioning when compared to Ling in this state. Upon closer inspection, the surface of Dustless's skin showed signs of cracking due to the exaggerated deterrence. Scarlet blood seeped out of his skin along the blood vessels. So strong. This should be under the condition that she's deliberately preserving her strength. Dustless clenched his fists and gritted his teeth as the veins on his face bulged. His nostrils were panting uncontrollably. The unprecedented suppression restricted Dustless's movements. His body was suppressed by the invisible 1,000-gold boulder, making it difficult for him to move. Under the crushing pressure of this aura, Dustless felt weak and lost. A feeling of insignificance that he had never felt before invaded his mind, and a myriad of emotions surged in his heart. How could Dustless be willing to be crushed so easily like an ant after spending half his life scheming and scheming? His ferocious eyes turned blood red, revealing an unwilling expression. Unwilling to go with the flow, he could only go against it. Dustless had experienced too much in his life. He would never give up so easily. He tried to stand up. His fearless eyes were emotionless as he looked straight at Ling. His expression was calm and fearless. Seeing Dustless resist, the vigorous aura became even more domineering. Dustless stood up and bent his body again. His whole body trembled. Even so, Dustless persisted in sweating, unwilling to give up. Going back and forth, the cycle took close to half an hour. You want me to give up despair? This kind of aura is still too weak. At least 10 times stronger. Curling his lips, Dustless's face revealed a ferocious smile. His eyes were as bright as the stars. At first he was not used to it, but as time passed he gradually got used to it. Yin. At the same time, the power hidden in his body finally erupted after being suppressed for a long time. A roar that soared into the sky shook the heavens and the earth. It was like a divine dragon that had awakened in ancient times. The loud dragon roar was accompanied by a powerful wave of air that spread across the endless sky. It happened suddenly, and Ling did not realize that the hidden Haushiku Haki in Dustless's body had suddenly awakened. Her strength was unprecedented and naturally there was no big problem. However, she was wearing a simple dress today. A strong storm blew and she was blown high. This little girl looks sacred and untouchable, but she is actually purple. There was a strange light in the depths of his eyes. Dustless was secretly speechless. The more noble a person is, the more they tend to have a shocking side. Bastard, your Haushiku Haki is used to lift other people's skirts. The white delicate smile was replaced by shame and anger, and she stared at Dustless fiercely. Her delicate body trembled, and her small hands were clenched into fists. She couldn't wait to kill Dustless with one punch. Lift your skirt? Hearing this, Dustless just glanced at the angry Ling, and the white and tender skin in his mind was thrown away. He said seriously and indifferently, "Your thin arms and legs, sorry, I am not interested in them for the time being. I will wait until you grow up." When the voice fell, Dustless turned and left, leaving Ling a simple back. Could it be that he really didn't see it? Her face was full of suspicion and Ling was deeply skeptical about this. Fortunately, I am witty enough or I will definitely be beaten by her. Turning her head, Wu Chen's indifferent face was replaced by cold sweat. It was not that she was greedy for life and afraid of death, but she couldn't avoid being destroyed by Ling, that little girl. Moreover, it was the most annoying and inhumane kind. Recalling the quiet figure of the beautiful country in his mind, Dustless's thoughts were in a trance, and he quickened his pace and swept straight towards the pavilion in front of him. Just at the same time, an unexpected enchanting figure suddenly appeared, and the space was split in a square, and the peerless beauty gracefully stepped out of it. "Oh, long time no see." His cheeks were filled with a gentle and sunny smile. Although he was a little surprised, Dustless still politely greeted her. No matter what, the person in front of him had a relationship with himself, even if it was forced. The standing figure was as cold as an iceberg, and her arm was gently raised, and then she threw out a cold flash. "Kill Grey Bone." Chapter 439. There is no doubt that the person in front of him is Otsutsuki Kagaya, who was locked in the small black house by Dustless. "Bastard old witch, no matter what, I'm still your lover. How can you kill me so ruthlessly?" Seeing how ruthless Huey was, Wu Chen cursed. There is no doubt about the power of gray bone. It is condensed by the power of yin and yang. Any creature that is stabbed will collapse and annihilate, and finally disappear with the wind. Any object that touches it will be annihilated. Golden light swept all over his body, and he easily used elementalization to avoid the oncoming bone spurs. You want to die. Hearing this, Kagaya's killing intent was even more piercing, and the slender silver hair behind her danced with the wind, turning into thousands of cold lights. She was extremely ruthless. Obviously, she has a bitter hatred for Dustless who took her virginity. Countless strands of hair that were as hard as steel needles shot over with boundless power, but just like before, they were easily ignored by Wuqian's elemental transformation. He stood there motionlessly as if nothing had happened. No matter what method Huey used, she couldn't shake Wuqian. Kagaya, who doesn't know how to use armament hockey, will never be able to touch Dustless. After so long, I still have such a deep hatred. With a helpless sigh, Dustless turned into shining particles and fell beside Kagaya. In order to prevent her from taking the opportunity to attack, his body always maintained the state of elementalization. Frankly speaking, Wuqian didn't have any grudges against Huey Ji. However, this woman was always as cold as an iceberg. Her face was as beautiful as a flower in jade, and she always kept people away. Let me out. Otherwise your little lovers, humph. Glancing at Dustless, Huey warned with a murderous look in her eyes. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled. This was the world within the system. What Huey Ji said didn't count. The real ruler was Ling Er, whose strength could easily suppress Huey Ji. Huey Ji had rebelled before, but she was easily suppressed. If you have the ability, you can go out by yourself. He caressed Huey's hair carelessly and smelled her unique fragrance. His lips curled into an evil smile as he said, "If you can make me, I will let you out for some fresh air." Dustless was obviously fooling her. So far, she didn't have the means to release the girls. Dustless's voice drifted to Huey's ears. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's. At the same time, he didn't forget to blow hot air into Huey's ears. Despicable. Sensing the abnormality in her ears, Kagaya's anger burned away her rationality. She waved her hand and shot out a blazing hurricane, but it still couldn't touch Dustless's body. It floated past his body. Boom, boom, boom. The deafening explosion shook the entire system world. Along with the explosion, several mountains were shattered, and smoke and dust hundreds of feet high drifted into the depths of the horizon. The remaining energy waves and dust particles mixed together, turning into a violent sandstorm. It swallowed everything within a radius of hundreds of kilometers. Her strength actually increased instead of decreasing. Dustless took a deep breath and said with an unnatural expression, "It had been quite some time since he came here." His improvement was limited. On the contrary, Huey in the system world had improved at a rapid pace. "I'm not someone like you who is tainted by the secular world. I have a pure heart and few desires. I don't have those dirty thoughts like you. My improvement speed is naturally not something a brat like you can compare to." Glancing at Dustless beside her, Huey's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. She said coldly, "When I break out of this prison, it will be the time for you to be torn into pieces. Remember this, brat." From the beginning to the end, Dustless's expression didn't change. Staring at Huey's graceful figure, he suddenly remembered the scene when he had sex with Huey in the past. "Brat?" The corner of his mouth raised, revealing a teasing smile. Dustless curled his lips and said, "Old witch who doesn't mean what she says, the brat you were talking about rode you that day, 80 gods air strike." Huey's roar suddenly fell. The sky was filled with fist shadows. The air exploded and the void trembled violently. In the azure space, uncontrollable dense cracks could be seen clearly. The terrifying fists all fell on Dustless's body. The scene was the same as before. She couldn't catch Dustless's body. "If I let you out, you will kill me. If that's the case, I can't let you out of the cage. If you can turn over a new leaf and don't have the desire to conquer the world, I don't mind letting you out for some fresh air." Revealing a rueful expression, Dustless's figure gradually faded, turning into a wisp of smoke and slowly dissipating. If Huey could really abandon the past grudges, he was still willing to face it calmly. Wishful thinking. Glancing emotionlessly at Dustless who was about to collapse, Huey sneered. There was no one worthy of her repenting, especially a brat. It was even more unworthy. And she didn't think that she had done anything wrong. She subconsciously touched the root of her ears, and a dry heat suddenly burned in her heart. Her heart of Tao that had been calm for many years splashed a faint ripple. Just a brat. The dark red lips opened slightly and Huey's cold voice softened a little. It was much more human. Splat. Huey, who was in a trance, was stunned. Her left face was suddenly wrapped in water stains, and there was a blazing wave of air. She turned her head angrily, and what she saw was Dustless, who should have disappeared. The taste is not bad, but it's a little cold. Touching his chin, Dustless carefully tasted the residual mellow fragrance on the tip of his tongue and said regretfully. A giant black sphere suddenly grew bigger, swallowing everything around it. A new world was born in the sphere. The furious Huey saw Dustless so smug, and naturally she didn't show any mercy. You don't know how to be romantic. When you really repent and turn over a new leaf, I will naturally let you out. She shook her head and then sighed. Her whole body collapsed again and there was no trace of her aura. Obviously she really left the system world. It was 100% certain that the probability of Huey turning over a new leaf was 0. Chapter 440. Time flew by like a white steed, and in the blink of an eye, another 3 days passed by silently. Next to the smooth transparent stone table, Dustless calmly read today's morning newspaper. His hair was wet, and he was wearing white cotton pajamas. In the room the lights were bright and 2 figures could be clearly seen. Boa Hancock, dressed as a maid, stood gracefully beside Dustless. The time they spent together was short, and she also understood what kind of person Dustless was. He was no different from a normal human being. He didn't have the concept of being a celestial dragon's slave, and he would often show a sincere smile to her. It's a bit absurd to say it, but that's the reality. You are too casual, you have to figure out where this place is. Her watery eyes were filled with anger as she stared at the figure resting on the sofa opposite her, her fists clenched. On the sofa, a tall man with a hat on his head leisurely crossed his legs, carrying a long black sword on his back. Apparently he had fallen asleep and you could hear a slight snoring sound, very casual. The long black sword on his back was not an ordinary weapon, it was shining, and it exuded an awe-inspiring sword intent, giving people a feeling of invincibility. It was one of the sharpest swords in the world, the Black Sword Knight. There was no doubt that this person was Hawkeye Myhawk. Hawkeye directly ignored Boa Hancock's angry rebuke and continued to sleep, ignoring her dissatisfaction as if it didn't exist. This is interesting. The hot tea that was delivered to the corner of his mouth suddenly stopped. Dustless was quickly attracted by the headlines in the newspaper. His eyes confirmed the contents of the newspaper several times, and after confirming that he wasn't dizzy, he said, I didn't expect that man to be captured by the Marine headquarters. 100 Beast Kaido, one of the famous pirates in the New World, was notorious for his ferocity. In the future he would rule the world like an emperor and overlook the second half of the Grand Line, as one of the 4 emperors. There was no doubt that his reputation and strength were at the top of the pyramid. Now that he was captured alive, Dustless's brain really short-circuited. This is not a rare thing. Kaido was captured by the Marine several times before, and the final result was that he escaped, and the prison where he was imprisoned was sunk. Hawkeye lifted the hat on his face and smelled a faint fragrance. He opened his eyes and picked up the tea on the transparent stone table and drank it. The most ridiculous thing is that the Marine once threatened to publicly execute him, but he still escaped. I heard that the Marine Fleet Admiral was scolded by the highest power of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Hawkeye casually tapped his foot on the table. He was caught by the Marines 3 or 4 times, but he was still able to escape easily. He can no longer be described as powerful. This time that man is facing the danger of being executed again, I don't know if he can perform a miracle. Dropping the newspaper in his hand, Dustless said. You can clearly see the eye-catching words under the newspaper. The great pirate 100 Beast Kaido will be executed in Rogue Town in 3 days. Hearing this, Hawkeye opened his eyes again, revealing a wise look. He analyzed, in the war a few days ago, the world government and the Marine headquarters lost face. I am afraid that they want to save the face of the government by executing Kaido. The war a few days ago shook the whole world. The Marine, the government, and the pirates suffered extremely heavy casualties. Whitebeard and the other pirates escaped from the encirclement and escaped the pursuit of the world government and the Marine. Or simply swaggered away because the entire Marine headquarters and the world government were hit hard, and they couldn't stop their escape. Kaido is not Whitebeard. Even if he is executed, it won't change much of their reputation. Staring at Kaido, who was tied up like a dumpling in the newspaper, Hawkeye was puzzled. In his words there was deep confusion and questions. Kaido is a very powerful pirate, but compared to the legendary Whitebeard, his identity, status and strength are not a little bit worse. A group of kids playing house, it's boring enough, let them be. Shaking his head and smiling, Dustless didn't bother about the secret. The Gorosei's thinking is jumping, ordinary people can't guess what they are thinking, not to mention this matter has nothing to do with him. Continuing to browse the other information in the newspaper, other banners immediately attracted Dustless's attention. The content of the newspaper is quite simple, just a Marine soldier in uniform about 30 years old, carrying a Marine special long gun in his hand, wearing dark sunglasses. The content of the introduction of this ordinary soldier is also extremely simple. Marine excellent soldier, Virgo. Hancock, what is the recent movement of the Don Quixote pirates? Putting down the tea in his hand, Dustless suddenly asked, his eyes flashing with a hidden light. The Don Quixote pirates have been very low-key recently, almost fading out of people's sight, and their traces are hard to find. According to reliable news, they seem to be carrying out some kind of transaction. Marine's Vice Admiral Tsuru is tracking their traces. Although there are doubts, Hancock said seriously, this is also one of the tasks Dustless gave her. Transaction. Hearing this, Dustless frowned and then sneered. Since coming to this world, he began to pay attention to the Don Quixote pirates. Thinking of the transaction items, his breathing became heavy for a while. When he was about to instruct Hawkeye to rob them directly, the sound of leather shoes walking sounded first. In less than a few seconds, several black-clothed people came into Dustless's sight. These people are the confidants of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. It seems that you have all sent it. Staring at the documents of these black-clothed people, Dustless was relieved. This was also one of the conditions of the transaction between him and the bald Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Chapter 441. His eyes narrowed slightly as he stared at the tall man in black in front of him with a grin on his face. Dustless needs the confidential documents in the hands of these men. Louis South, Saint, this is what you need. The man in black with sunglasses said respectfully. The celestial dragons are not easy to offend. Even if he is a confidant of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, he does not dare to violate the rules. In particular, the man in front of him is the type that is extremely difficult to provoke. Maybe the slightest offense will cause him to be killed on the spot. Celestial dragons are temperamental. They don't need a reason to kill, it depends entirely on their mood. Nodding slightly, then waving his hand, Dustless motioned for them to get out. Goodbye. Seeing that Dustless was so easy to talk to, the group of men in black also breathed a sigh of relief. Obviously they were not used to staying with celestial dragons. They put down the confidential documents in their hands and left. To some extent, celestial dragons are more dangerous than pirates. Gotcha. He pulled open the cover wrapped outside, revealing a thick and simple book, which looked mysterious and full of vicissitudes of history. He flipped open a yellow book cover and saw a devil's fruit. Devil fruit illustration? What's the use of this kind of thing? Frowning, staring at the devil fruit illustration in the book, Hawkeye came over and asked in surprise. This kind of thing there are countless in the outside world, and it's inconceivable that it's related to confidential documents. However, as Dustless turned the next page, Hawkeye's eyes instantly solidified. He had never seen the devil fruit before. It was strangely shaped, but its origin and history were clearly marked on it. There was even an introduction of its ability. The most detailed part was that it stated who had used it before, as well as its past achievements. The content of this devil fruit illustration seems to be more detailed. Lowering his head, Hawkeye's face was full of contemplation, and he seemed to guess something, and his expression suddenly stiffened. There is no need to be surprised. It is indeed as you imagined. The devil fruit illustration circulating in the outside world is just a miniature of it. Now this is the original state of the devil fruit illustration. Regardless of Hawkeye's expression, Dustless just flipped through the devil fruit illustration. These detailed records were not available in the devil fruit illustration handbook in the outside world. Moreover, this strange devil fruit in front of him was not available in the devil fruit illustration handbook in the outside world. Don't underestimate the world government. After more than 800 years, their various systems have long been perfected. They have their own intelligence system, secretly collecting devil fruit abilities from all over the world, and then writing unknown illustrations. The set of devil fruit illustrations in the outside world were also made by them. They were just used to fool the world. Of course, the contents recorded in them are still true. Seeing Hawkeye's puzzled face, Dustless explained faintly, the real devil fruit illustration has actually been kept in the hands of the government. Hearing this, Hawkeye's face slightly changed. The devil fruit illustration handbook in front of him was obviously different from the one sold in the outside world. There were all kinds of records, including the ability, origin, the characters used, battle records, and even how the host died. The most difficult thing for Hawkeye to accept was that from the ancient handwriting, it was estimated to be hundreds of years old. Dustless did not care about Hawkeye and began to read the devil fruit illustration handbook information, hoping to get the ability of the 2 devil fruits stored in the Kamui space. God does not disappoint people. After about half an hour, Dustless finally found the ability of the light fruit. Unlimited regeneration, healing, and the ability to control light? Is that all? With disappointment in his eyes, Dustless was quite dissatisfied. After all, it was the ultimate devil fruit. Although the ability was still very powerful, there was still a gap between his expectations. This ability is enough to be called the ability of God. How can there be such a magical ability in the world? Hawkeye, who came over, was in disbelief, staring at the light fruit. In contrast to the disappointed Dustless, his tone was full of astonishment. Unlimited regeneration, this ability is indeed no different from God's. The devil fruit illustration handbook sold in the outside world has never recorded a devil fruit like the light fruit. That's right. Hearing this, Dustless smiled. After all, it's just a devil fruit. It can achieve unlimited regeneration, which is beyond human understanding of devil fruit. In particular, it also has the ability to control light, which should coincide with Dustless's glint fruit. In his mind, he suddenly remembered another ultimate devil fruit in the Kamui space. Dustless's heart spontaneously gave birth to expectations. His celestial dragon's cheapskate father exploded because of this unknown devil fruit. How strange its ability is can be imagined. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Wu Chen's face fell. It's not there? Dustless, who flipped through for a long time, did not find the introduction of another devil fruit. His face was gloomy, looking at the heavy ancient book, his eyes flashed with coldness. Is it possible that the 5 old men deliberately tore it? His eyes sharpened, trying to find the tear marks, but still found nothing. For a time, Dustless also fell into deep doubts. The devil fruit that is enough to explode the strength of a marine admiral is indeed extremely strange. After hesitating for a long time, Dustless chose Hancock to immediately find someone to copy it. There are many unheard of devil fruits that are completely beyond imagination. It is necessary to record them in detail. Some of them are even stronger than Tremor fruit and Dark fruit. No, maybe that strange fruit doesn't belong to the scope of devil fruit itself. Dustless secretly guessed that the devil fruit only has the form of a devil fruit. Whether its appearance, structure, or other aspects, it is different from the devil fruit. Stable update, full of integrity. Chapter 442. After Hancock and Hawkeye were sent away by Dustless in the dead room, Dustless was alone, integrated with the darkness, and his breath completely disappeared. Without using eyes to deliberately look, it is impossible to detect the existence of Dustless. Hancock was naturally sent by Dustless to copy the devil fruit illustration book, which recorded countless devil fruits with heaven-defying abilities. Naturally, the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars could not be taken advantage of. As for Hawkeye, he was sent by Dustless to grab the Surgeon fruit. Dustless is still quite envious of the Surgeon fruit. As for the so-called Mariehua national treasure, Dustless is not interested in it. He doesn't know what the specific content is and it's difficult to grab it. Cleverness makes a mistake, I'm too persistent. With a self-deprecating smile, Dustless sighed silently. Recalling the surface engraved with flowers and trees, as well as the dragon riding the clouds, the endless doubts in Dustless's heart disappeared. The moment he saw the mysterious ultimate devil fruit, the preconceived idea of the devil fruit has been deeply rooted. After all, only the devil fruit in the world has such a form. It also shows that no matter what you do, you can't rely on pure perceptual speculation, but under absolute reason, you can make a correct and reasonable explanation based on your own subjective analysis. The world is impermanent. Even if Dustless knows what will happen in the future, fate is also tortuous and changeable, and it is impossible for all to develop according to the original historical trajectory. But, everything is interesting because it can escape from control. If it is exactly the same as what I expect, then what fun is there? Opening the window, Dustless went straight to the balcony, drank the dark red liquid in the delicate transparent cup, stared at the dark night sky in the distance, and the corners of his mouth evoked a smile. It is because there are always unexpected accidents that the world is colorful and full of vitality. A gentle night breeze blew from the front, causing Wu Chen's disheveled hair to flutter in the wind. Under the dark night sky, that pair of sparkling eyes were especially conspicuous, like a resplendent pearl, attracting the attention of others. When Dustless was admiring the moon, suddenly, the void in the distance strangely swept aflame. Boom boom boom, in the dark night sky, a harsh roar resounded through the sky, and an unprecedented hot cloud of fire rose strangely over Mariehua. The violent vibration spread out, and the whole Mariehua trembled violently and became a mess. What's the situation? Could it be that it was invaded again? It's also the headquarters of the world government. It's too outrageous to be invaded one after another. Staring at the giant fireball in the distance, Dustless was speechless for a while, and then there was a gloating smile on the corner of his mouth. With such a big movement, the Gorosei was inevitably condemned by the celestial dragons. This so-called headquarters of the world government, the defense was too fragile, and it was invaded every few days, especially the vibration this time was more exaggerated than the last tiger invasion. The majestic perception spread out, and the center of the explosion was quickly exposed to Dustless's eyes. It turned out to be the office of the Gorosei. No one should be stupid enough to talk about flowers and the moon with the Gorosei. The gloating smile froze, Dustless frowned, and he was puzzled as he muttered to himself. The center of the explosion was the place where the Gorosei usually worked. Master Dustless. An eager voice suddenly sounded. In this world, Dustless's name was Royce South, Saint. Only people from the previous world could call out Dustless's previous name. Looking at the place where the sound came from, a strange white figure of a person or a monster with half of his body buried in the ground entered Dustless's sight. Looking up, it was White Zetsu. The only difference was that the White Zetsu in front of him was created by Dustless through yin-yang escape. What's the matter, White Zetsu? I didn't send you to monitor the movements of the Gorosei, you? Is it possible that the previous explosion was caused by you? The dissatisfied expression suddenly stiffened, and Dustless noticed that White Zetsu's lower body was burned. His voice lowered, and then he remembered the previous explosion and asked gloomily. The 5 old guys seem to be wrong. I just sneaked in and was discovered by them. White Zetsu smiled bitterly, recalling the shocking scene just now, and his forehead was still sweating. If he hadn't left in advance, he would have been killed by the Gorosei. White Zetsu was confident in his ability to hide, but he didn't expect the Gorosei to be so extraordinary. When he tried to spy on the content of their conversation, he was discovered, and then there was a merciless beating. As a result, the lower half of his body was burned into nothingness. Impossible. According to my guess, those 5 guys should be at the level of the Yonko. There is no reason for them to detect you. Dustless naturally wouldn't forget the great battle a few days ago. The bald Gorosei was even beaten by Dustless. Dustless estimated that he was on par with Kaido and Bigu's mom. Now that he could discover White Zetsu's spying, it was obvious that his strength was not as simple as it seemed. Deliberately hiding their strength? It seems unlikely. They have no reason to do so, but the 5 old men can find you. There is indeed a problem. White Zetsu's ability to hide was beyond doubt. He was absolutely a master in 10,000. The Gorosei could detect him, which indirectly showed that they were mysterious and extraordinary. I don't know much about the specifics. White Zetsu said bitterly. His strength was average. His greatest ability was to spy on intelligence and escape. After Haushikuhaki reaches the realm of thousand tempering, you can hear the sound of all things in the world, which is also an ability called domineering domain. All abilities will be qualitatively improved. Is it possible that the 5 of them can do it too? Frowning, Dustless thought of the ability used by Akagami, Red Hair, a few days ago. Even if the bald Gorosei did not use Haushikuhaki when he fought Whitebeard that day, it does not mean that he does not know it. People at the level of the Gorosei have no Haushikuhaki. Chapter 443. The usual office of Wuxia, 5 Elder Stars, has now become a pile of rubble, and the ground has become charred black with a nauseating burnt smell. On the charred ground, 5 tall figures of different stature are clearly visible. With them as the center, the area with a radius of hundreds of meters is barren. What's even more strange is that all objects have collapsed, both with and without vitality. We haven't moved our muscles and bones for many years, and the world has forgotten us old bones. The Wuxia, 5 Elder Stars, with a birthmark on his forehead, said gloomily. At this moment he was particularly strange, surrounded by purple flames, and his eyes were scarlet, giving people a feeling of horror. There were still purple flames in the surroundings that had yet to disperse. Clearly this was his masterpiece. This purple flame is particularly terrifying, like a deep-sea beast with fangs. Even ordinary gravel is decomposed by this dangerous flame and is strangely swallowed. It's really lawless. The world government's base camp has become a kindergarten. We seem to have become the administrators of the kindergarten. The old man with long hair and beard, who was obviously much taller than the other 4 Wuxia, 5 Elder Stars, said with a little ridicule in his tone, but everyone can hear the anger that is enough to annihilate everything. They deliberately let Fishman Tiger attack Mariehua, but this time it is obviously an enemy invasion, which is tantamount to a direct slap in their face. Well, I burned half of that guy's body. You know my ability, he will die. The Wuxia, 5 Elder Stars, with a birthmark on his forehead, showed his murderous intent. His tiger body shook, and the purple flame behind him shone brightly, and any matter around him was burned into nothingness by him. The other 4 Wuxia, 5 Elder Stars, nodded in agreement. It doesn't matter. The government has become the laughingstock of the whole world. These damaged reputations must be restored. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat. You understand this truth? The old man with long hair and beard said with a worried tone. As the highest rulers, they naturally understand the importance of people's hearts. Once it is scattered, it is more serious than the entire marine army being destroyed. Ignorant, this is a self-inflicted trap. Let the pirates fight among themselves, but the idea is good, but the result is cruel. Not only did we not get any benefits, but we also suffered a double loss. The golden-haired Wuxia casually sat on a stone, crossed his arms in front of him, and vented his dissatisfaction. Underestimating the wisdom of those big pirates will make you suffer. The complexion of the bald 5 Elder Stars, who wore a white Taoist robe, changed greatly when he heard this. He was the one who had commanded the battle a few days ago. So, the implication of these words was obviously aimed at him. That's funny. Didn't you agree to my proposal? Obviously, the 5 Elder Stars were not to be trifled with. His words were sharp as he retorted, now you're giving advice after the fact. Boring. If talking could change the world, Roger would have died decades ago. The 5 honored stars were clearly people who loved sabers. Although the first-generation ghost blade that had been robbed by Dustless a few days ago had already disappeared, he was now holding a simple and unadorned long saber in his hand. A saber that could catch the eye of a top-level swordsman like him was definitely not something ordinary. You. Hearing this, the golden-haired Wuxia's face was filled with anger. He was about to have a good argument when a bland voice came first. We have worked together for so many years. There is no need to talk about such trivial things. Let's discuss how to deal with the aftermath. We have been provoked by the pirates one after another. If we don't respond, the consequences will be unimaginable. The Wuxia with a scar on the left side of his face and a hat always remained silent. Seeing the possibility of a quarrel between the two, he interrupted in a deep voice, Kaido's identity and status are not enough to wash away the flaws and stains of the government. We must focus on other aspects. Kaido's status today is ordinary. He has not reached the height of an emperor in the future. Especially now, Kaido is just a prisoner. Even if this prisoner is unreliable, he is still a prisoner. You don't have to worry about this. The reputation of the government will not be affected. The 5 Elder Stars holding the saber smiled mysteriously. The viciousness in his eyes was clearly visible. His face suddenly became gloomy. As long as that man is executed on the same day, all the reputation can be saved. A small amount did not make a gentleman, and a great man had to be ruthless. The so-called peace and stability were in fact obtained through the darkness that no one knew about. However, the top battle power of the Marine is not enough. It is necessary to promote a new admiral. The bald Wuxia with the saber suddenly said. After the war a few days ago, he realized that the Marine's battle power is too fragile, especially the top figures. Today the admiral is only supported by the Buddhist warring states. Although Garp has the strength of an admiral, he is still a vice-admiral. As for the former Admiral Black Wrist Z, he is no different from a retired admiral and is responsible for teaching the Marine freshmen. It is not polite to say that a legendary figure like Whitebeard can be compared to the Pirate King. If he was in his heyday, the three admirals together would not be enough to play with him. Indeed. The other four Gorosei nodded in agreement. In the face of the New World's pirates, the combat power of the Marine headquarters is indeed obviously insufficient. This war has explained everything. It is good to break them one by one, but in the face of the pirates, the Marine headquarters is really vulnerable. But there is no suitable candidate. Kazan, Borsellino, Sakazuki of the Marine headquarters. These people are strong, but they have not reached the level of an admiral, and their age and qualifications are not enough. The blonde Gorosei said. He agreed to add an admiral. It can increase the strength of the Marine, and it can also deter people. The effect is huge. Naturally, there is a candidate. The bald Gorosei with the saber smiled and said confidently. He did not say who he would choose. Chapter 444. Mariehua, which should have been peaceful and quiet, suddenly became chaotic and noisy after White Zetsu stirred it up. The riot continued until dawn and did not stop. With the existence of the heretic Fisher Tiger, the celestial dragons learned to be smart and hid in the tunnels prepared in advance. Looking around, the only celestial dragons who can remain calm in Mariehua is Dustless. Not everyone has his supercilious strength. The higher the status, the more afraid of death. The celestial dragons are this true portrayal. They were born as descendants of God. If they are slaughtered by mere mortals, their end will be too miserable. In the brightly lit villa, after a casual and simple wash, fatigue and sleepiness also swept through his limbs and bones. When Dustless was about to rest, an inexplicable figure suddenly came into sight. The one who confessed without being pressed was Wu Chen's old acquaintance. What a rare guest. Looking up, Dustless said indifferently. His tone was like a weasel paying a New Year's greetings to the chicken, which directly made the latter's face twitch. Looking up, it was the bald Gorosei with a sword. Outrageous, it's really. Forget it, I won't bother with him. Staring at Wu Chen's fearful face, the old face of the bald 5 elder stars holding the saber twitched. It was more uncomfortable than eating 100 pounds of flies. Every time he met with Wu Chen, he seemed to be the one who suffered losses. Now Wu Chen was the one who made the countercharge. He was especially depressed. Thinking of the major events related to the life and death of the world government, the bald Gorosei with a sword had to sit down and swallow his anger. 800 years ago, the 20 kings established the world government. To some extent, the celestial dragons and the world government are no different from a family. After saying that, the bald quintet with the sword looked at Dustless. After seeing him nod in approval, he secretly thought that there was hope. Then he reorganized his thoughts and said heavily, the world government is now facing an unprecedented dilemma, and we still need the help of Louis South, Holy? Losing prestige is not a casual thing. It is definitely more dangerous than the collapse of the Marine headquarters. It means that all over the world, the orders of the world government and their laws may not be carried out. In that case, he would be no different from a commander without an army. Of course. We're all a family. Of course we have to love each other. Hearing this, Wu Chen crossed his legs and grinned, revealing a row of white teeth. He said seriously, when one side is in trouble, all sides will help. What's more, we are all relatives. When the government is in trouble, we, the celestial dragons, naturally have to do what we can. Dustless's expression was extremely serious. The bald quintet with the sword had doubts in his eyes. He didn't believe that Dustless would be so great. Even so, he still expressed his inner worries. Royce South is also well aware of the battle a few days ago. The gap between the Marines and the group of lawless pirates is really huge. It is good to be able to break them one by one. But once the group of pirates attacks together. In short, the current Marine lacks top-level combat power. Without wasting his breath, the bald quintet said directly, so, the government hopes that Louis South, Holy, can serve as an admiral of the Marine. The bald quintet with the sword said something amazing, and his loud voice was affirmative. Obviously he was not joking. Of course, there is an essential difference between an admiral and an admiral. This is an official position specially made for you, Honorary Admiral. The Honorary Admiral of the Marine Headquarters, this is the first honor since ancient times. Honorary Admiral? His face was strange, but he didn't directly refuse the quintet. He asked with interest, what is the difference between this Honorary Admiral and the Buddhist warring states of the Marine Headquarters? There must be a difference, there is an essential gap. Seeing that Dustless did not simply refuse, the pressure on his chest disappeared. The quintet with the sword picked up the tea on the stone table and drank a few mouthfuls to moisten his throat. Honorary Admiral is specially set up for Louis South, Holy. You don't need to obey any orders from the Marine Headquarters. All kinds of busy tasks will not fall on your head. In addition, you can enter any Marine base at any time. With a slightly red face, the old man with the sword introduced, this is the most generous condition in history. If you want to perform any task, you can perform any task. If you want to leave the burden, you can leave the burden. It's completely at will. The only admiral who is so free and unfettered is Dustless. It's tailor-made. What Louis South, Saint, needs to do is to lend a helping hand when the Marine Headquarters is under threat. The premise is that the enemy is attacking the Marine Headquarters. The rest of the time you are free and will not be disturbed. Hearing this, Dustless nodded thoughtfully. Such generous conditions are really good. Without doing anything, he can get the highest position of an admiral. It's really good, and he only needs to act when the Marine Headquarters is threatened, which is in line with the lazy character of the Celestial Dragons. However, there is a big problem. This so-called Honorary Admiral seems to have no power at all. In other words, it's in name only. It's not a problem to be the so-called Honorary Admiral, although I don't care about the power of the Marine Headquarters, but... His eyes fell on the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars. Dustless smiled, showing a fox-like sly smile. If you have something to say, just say it. The proud look froze, the bald quintet with the sword asked unnaturally. He knew that if he wanted to do something for Dustless, he must pay enough chips to impress him. As you said before, we are all one family. Naturally, I can't say two things. Being an honorary admiral is my relief to your government and the Marine. Now it's your government and the Marine's turn to relieve me. Chapter 445. In the face of Dustless's high price, Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, can only compromise. The only thing worthy of the 5 Elder Stars consolation was that Wuxia rarely had any ideas about his treasured saber. Only then did his heart, which was in a state of turmoil, sink like a stone into the sea and become abnormally calm. Although Dustless's price is enough to make him and the other 4 Gorosei 5 Elder Stars vomit blood, they can reluctantly accept it. The next morning, the most conspicuous banner in the newspaper, the latest movement of the Marine, shocked the world. The content of the newspaper is quite simple and casual, just a few understated words, but the fluctuation that came out is unprecedented. The pirates of the New World were shocked by this sudden news. The large black font is clearly visible. Marine Headquarters New Admiral Royce South. The figure left on the banner is thin and looks very thin, even less than 2 meters tall, which is the opposite of the 3 or 4 meters tall man. His entire body was painted black, and it was obvious that it was intentional. This mysterious unknown new admiral for a time became the focus of the whole world. Since he can become an admiral, he can't be ordinary. In particular, this mysterious character obviously didn't climb step by step. The Marine has never heard of such a person. Obviously, he was directly promoted to the position of an admiral. The current Admiral Sengoku and the former Black Wrist, Z, both of them have confronted the pirate King Roger. Even if this admiral is not as good as Sengoku and Z, he can easily change the pattern of the world. The Grand Line, an unknown island covered with ice and snow. Royce's surname? Isn't this the surname of the Celestial Dragon's family? Is it a coincidence? On the white snow there are messy footprints. Looking forward, a row of figures in front is clearly visible. One of them is wearing a pink feather, walking among the crowd. Apparently he is their boss. It is the Don Quixote pirates. Brother Ming, the Marine, unexpectedly has a new admiral, and it seems that he is a mysterious character. Maybe he is just a street goods. This kind of thing, the Marine used to do a lot of things. The sloppy treble always had doubts. The Marine Headquarters was familiar with conspiracies and tricks, and this kind of boring trick has never been used before. You're really trying to fool the world. There's no need to just show off your back. With a flick of his finger, the newspaper suddenly exploded into pieces and slowly fell to the ground like snow. Doflamingo casually stepped the newspaper pieces into the snow. What he cared about the most was not the choice of great general, but the person's surname. It should be a coincidence. The Lois family seems to have only one child left. They shouldn't make such a sensational joke to please the world. The guys in the marine won't allow the celestial dragons to make trouble. Doflamingo secretly guessed. The Lois family was also a celestial dragon family. The celestial dragons gave the world the impression that they were lazy and ignorant. Doflamingo also thinks so. He never thought that there could be an admiral among the Tenryubito, and even if the marine headquarters is afraid of the Tenryubito, it is absolutely impossible to let an incompetent waste be an admiral. But then again, that guy Corazon is really a spy sent by the marine. Treble's sloppy face was cautious, with a hint of hatred. Most pirates were heartless, but there were some who valued friendship. People who believed in traitors and spies, and people who could control their emotions very well would also go berserk. Don't worry about him after you get the surgeon fruit, Corazon. The road is your own choice and you have to pay the price. Blue veins appeared on his forehead, and Doflamingo's murderous intent was revealed. The biting chill dropped the temperature of the surrounding space to the freezing point. The blue veins on his forehead seemed to have worms wriggling, and he was extremely scared. He treated Corazon as a close relative, but the latter was a spy sent by the marine. The last conscience in Doflamingo's heart disappeared with Corazon's betrayal. At the same time, the pirates all over the world also learned that the marine headquarters had added a mysterious admiral, but their thoughts were very different. Some are naturally worried. After all, it's a profession that is opposite to each other. The enemy is big and pirates will inevitably think about danger and peace. Some are also holding the mentality of laughing. All in all, after such deliberate publicity by the world government, the name Royce South has spread all over the world like a hurricane. Dustless, the originator, is now leisurely, living the life of a second generation. The life of a Tenryubito is so free and decadent, and all kinds of ugly life are used to it in front of them. In the super-large auction house. What good things can there be in this place? In the luxurious seat, Dustless was quite uncomfortable. At the moment he was wearing bulky clothes with bubbles, obviously dressed as a Tenryubito. The group of people sitting next to him are all Tenryubito. They are as big as mountains. Looking around, there are no less than a dozen of them. However, compared with these fat mountains, Dustless is obviously a beautiful scenery. Forget it, since I'm here I'll take it easy. Dustless looked at the auction list sent by the staff of the auction house. Most of them were strong slaves and all kinds of beautiful women, including various legendary swords. There were even a few devil fruits, but most of them were ordinary goods. Suddenly, Dustless's impatient eyes flashed with a strange light, and the pages in his hands stopped and fell on a young woman with blonde hair. This person's appearance was extremely beautiful, and she could be considered to be a beauty that could captivate birds and beasts. However, what Wu Qin cared about wasn't her appearance, but because Wu Qin knew this person. Moreover, if it wasn't for the fact that he had many important matters to deal with now, he would even personally capture this woman. The queen of the Fishman Island, Princess Odoheim, was caught, and it seems that she is being auctioned as a slave. This is very interesting. Chapter 446. Dustless narrowed his eyes and thought of the past of Princess Odoheim. After a while, the corners of his mouth outlined a meaningful smile. The ability of the fishman is quite strange. Odoheim was born with observation haki, and her daughter Shirahoshi is an ancient weapon, Sea King. How can she be caught in the sea? Closing the list of auction items, Dustless can't help but sigh that the world is fickle. The princess of the Fishman Island was caught as a slave. Fate is really changeable and bizarre. Time passed unknowingly. After a few minutes, the auction began in a hurry. There were as many as a dozen celestial dragons waiting, and they didn't dare to delay. If the celestial dragons get angry and smash the auction house, they can only admit defeat. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this auction house. After a simple brewing, the person who presided over the auction slowly appeared under all the eyes. It was a black-haired beauty with a good figure. The tall figure immediately attracted a lot of prying eyes and screams, and the cold scene finally boiled up. The performance of the celestial dragons was mediocre. They were all ugly to challenge the human vision. Their bodies were bloated and no different from pigs. However, each of them was sitting on 3,000 beauties. There were a lot of wives that could captivate the birds and beasts. Only Dustless is now an anomaly. He doesn't have a wife. In the world of celestial dragons, changing women is as simple and casual as eating and drinking water. First of all, the first auction item is the Zoan dog fruit. The starting price is 100 million berries. The beautiful auctioneer introduced the devil fruit in her hand. She used a seductive tone to drive the atmosphere of the auction. Coupled with her hot figure, the effect was unparalleled. The price of the devil fruit increased exponentially. I'll pay 130 million berries. In order to get a smile from the beauty, I'll pay 180 million berries. I'll pay 200 million berries. You dregs, shut up, I'll pay 500 million berries. After a red-faced quarrel in the end, there were celestial dragons who couldn't listen to the buzzing of these flies and simply hammered the price. He didn't spend money to buy the devil fruit, but to buy silence. There doesn't seem to be anything good. Closing his eyes, Dustless knew that the auction of Princess Odoheim was the highlight, and it was deliberately suppressed at the end, and then he closed his eyes to rest. Time passed quickly and he didn't know how long it took. Dustless's thoughts returned to his senses, and with the staging of the final highlight, he slowly opened his dark eyes. The next item to be auctioned is a fishman, and it's a goldfish with a starting price of 500 million berries. The meticulously made ground suddenly caved in, and the round transparent pool poked its head out. The figure swimming in the water was the princess of the Fishmen Island, Odoheim. The only difference was that there was a collar around her snow-white neck that indicated her status as a slave. At this moment, Princess Aji's face was full of anxiety, and her shining eyes were full of despair. Especially when she saw the fiery eyes of the celestial dragons, her heart was full of despair. 600 million berries. A celestial dragon roared. This young master offers 800 million berries. Another celestial dragon was also unwilling to be outdone and coveted. I'll pay. Wuxia just stared at Princess Aji indifferently. His dead eyes flashed with surprise and his face was strange. The majestic perception power shrouded her body. He was surprised to find that Princess Odoheim in front of him was pregnant, and what surprised Dustless the most was that she was already pregnant, but she was still a virgin. This is strange. Touching his chin, Dustless stared at Princess Odoheim. After a while, his brow wrinkled. Princess Odoheim's body seemed to be very strange, and there was a gap between it and the human body. For example, the future Blackbeard Marshal D. Tinker's body structure is also very special. Help me. A crisp and sweet cry for help resounded in his mind. Dustless was slightly stunned and looked up. It was Princess Odoheim who was staring at him with watery eyes. Why did she ask me for help? So that's why. The corner of his mouth twitched. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and the doubts in his eyes turned into a color of understanding. Compared with this group of fat and bloated celestial dragons, Dustless is probably the only human existence. Therefore, Princess Odoheim chose to ask for help from Dustless. Compared with these hungry celestial dragons, Dustless, who has never bid, looks more reliable. Sure enough, it's a mysterious race. They are born with observation haki, and they can speak directly to me. With a flash of surprise in his eyes, Dustless was quite surprised, and then nodded towards Princess Odoheim, indicating that she didn't need to worry about her safety. I'll pay 5 billion berries. Biting his teeth, a celestial dragon gave a desperate price, and then looked down at everyone with a proud face, warning and pride in his eyes. 3 billion berries. His indifferent voice carried indifference, yet it was gentle, yet it carried some sort of indescribable charm, and it spread throughout the entire auction hall, causing everyone to be dumbstruck. The meaning of this emotionless voice was as if 30 stones were not worth mentioning. Looking at the place where the voice sounded, a handsome celestial dragon came into view, with a knife-like face and a handsome face. It was Dustless Wooey. Fart, where did you get so many berries? An angry roar came over. Looking up, it was the celestial dragon who had bid 5 billion berries. At this moment he was pointing a golden pistol at Dustless and asked fiercely, berries? This kind of thing is just a simple word for me. It has no meaning at all. Without looking at the furious celestial dragon, Dustless just snapped his fingers casually, and the space behind him suddenly surged with dense ripples. Countless weapons made of gold floated in the void, and the golden flashes of the pulsating golden light turned the entire auction hall golden. I lack everything, but I don't lack money. Chapter 447. It's not that there are no weapons made of gold, on the contrary there are many, but such a large number is the first time they have seen it. Even a group of celestial dragons are equally stunned. Indulging in the world of luxury, it's also the first time they have seen so many weapons made entirely of gold. Clang clang clang. Immediately, under everyone's stunned gaze, all the weapons floating in the sky fell and piled up into a mountain. Is 3 billion berries enough? The cold voice sounded again. Dustless's eyes fell on the woman who presided over the auction. Their value is far more than 3 billion berries. Swallowing a breath, the black-haired woman who presided over the auction was stunned. Money is definitely good, but you must have a life to take it. If you dare to blacken the celestial dragons in front of you, you can only blame yourself if you are killed. These weapons made entirely of gold are handmade and are of great value. They have to be multiplied several times on the basis of gold to estimate their value. 3 billion is naturally the price of this mermaid, and the rest is your reward for pleasing this uncle. Dustless waved his hand impatiently, doing the posture of a nouveau riche, looking like a fool with a lot of money, although it's ridiculous that celestial dragons are like this. The people in the auction house heard the words and their mouths twitched. They looked at the mountains of gold weapons and their breathing was stagnant. No one could be relieved in front of tens of billions of berries. This woman, I'm going to take her away now. With a gentle stroke of his thumb, the large water tank on the ground floated up strangely and slowly moved toward Dustless's position. Regardless of everyone's reaction, he went straight to the exit of the auction house. And, as if remembering something, Dustless's footsteps suddenly stopped. He turned his head, revealing a cold half of his face, and the hostility around him made strange changes around him. Everyone's heart was in their throats and there was a feeling of being on the back. Although an idiot like you is not worthy of me asking for help, cold ripples appeared in the void and Wu Chen's voice spread out. I didn't intend to kill a person like you who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken, but you actually pointed a gun at me? Go to hell. Poochie. Poochie. The golden weapon that fell to the ground suddenly became restless, flashing a mysterious halo. The celestial dragon who had pointed a gun at Dustless was about to open his mouth and scold Dustless, but suddenly he felt pain in his body and his vitality was rapidly draining. Looking closely, his entire body had been pierced through by 10 sharp weapons. You will regret this. His hysterical song resounded throughout the silent auction house, but he still fell to the ground unwillingly. His eyes had completely lost their luster, and his body had been pierced through by 10 weapons. Even a living immortal would not be able to save him. Hearing the last roar, Dustless just smiled and didn't even turn his head. A mere celestial dragon was not worthy of his attention. When the Tenryubito was killed, the entire auction house immediately became restless and began to flee. It won't be long before the admirals of the marine headquarters come to find trouble. I seem to have chosen the wrong person. I've miscalculated. In the transparent water tank floating in the air, Princess Aji's delicate face changed slightly. She had only hoped that Dustless would be able to lend a helping hand. Although she had been rescued, it seemed she had stepped into a deeper hell. Looking at Dustless vaguely, Princess Aji's heart was particularly depressed. She found that she was really naive. Even if the Tenryubito in front of her was really different, he was still a Tenryubito. In particular, Dustless was bold enough to kill Tenryubito at will, which was far beyond her imagination, and it was for such a frivolous reason that Tenryubito held a gun. Many young people had already been popular in the world. At the harbor, Dustless stepped on the big ship that had been waiting for a long time in advance, and the water tank floating in the sky was naturally the same. After a while, there was a harsh whistle, and the ship began to move slowly toward Mariehua, and the chaotic island behind him was left behind. In a warm room with spacious facilities, Dustless circled around the huge water tank, sometimes showing a look of wonder, sometimes showing a look of contemplation and covetousness. The corner of his mouth raised a teasing smile, and an energy fluctuation came out of his finger, and the delicate glass tank suddenly burst. Boom! Princess Aji, who was caught off guard, fell directly to the ground and groaned in pain. To be honest, I really have an interest in dissecting you. The body structure of an unmarried child, the crazy scientist in the marine headquarters should be very curious. The casual words suddenly made Princess Aji's face pale. I can promise you anything you want. Biting her silver teeth, Princess Aji said seriously. People have to bow their heads under the eaves. What's more, this time she left the Fishman Island rashly. She also asked the master of the world government, Tenryubito. Dustless smiled with satisfaction when he heard the words and whispered, "You know what's good for you, and the 3 billion berries were not spent in vain." The soft laughter had a mysterious magic and a faint ripple spread. At the moment of contact with Princess Aji, the slave collar on her white neck also fell. "My request is very simple. I am not interested in you at all, but the child in your body is the price of 3 billion berries and the reward for saving you. In addition, I can send someone to safely send you to the Fishman Island." Without the slightest concealment, Dustless directly stated his purpose. "At the same time, I can also sign the document that you came for. The Fishman Island will coexist peacefully with humans from now on, and the fishmen will no longer be enslaved by humans." This condition is not ungenerous, but there is no smile on Princess Aji's face. She can't do it at the cost of her child. "Sorry, that's impossible." Even though she was already a prisoner, Princess Aji's voice was still 30% pleasing to the ear and 70% elegant, making one feel relaxed and happy. Even if she is a prisoner or even reduced to the level of a slave, she still has an indescribable majesty. Kneel down and vote for the heroine. Chapter 448. Hearing this, Dustless's face outlined an imperceptible arc. It was impossible to make this strong woman yield in a few words. "You don't agree?" His eyes narrowed, and the light from his eyes was very dangerous, making Princess Aji confused. The thinking of the celestial dragons is jumping up and down, and they change their faces faster than flipping a book. "You don't seem to figure out your current identity." His voice was low, Dustless sneered, and there was evil in his eyes. "I am a celestial dragons, a synonym for ghosts and beasts, and you are my slave. Anything is possible." Looking at Princess Aji, looking at her graceful body, Wuxia said with a smile full of deep meaning. Perhaps the character of the fishman is too naive and romantic, and her mind is simple. Princess Aji just stared at Dustless blankly, and did not understand the meaning of Dustless's words. "That's it, Wuxia." The corner of her clothes then shattered, and her snow-white skin was exposed under Dustless's line of sight. Her white skin was tinged with red, and her jade-like bones were incomparably beautiful. Looking closely, the corner of Princess Aji's clothes had split open. You shameless despicable villain." Hurriedly covering the place where the spring light was exposed, Princess Aji glared at Dustless, and her delicate face trembled with anger. Staring at the indifferent face of Dustless, she suddenly realized that describing him as a despicable villain was simply a slander. In her mind, she remembered the brutal past of the celestial dragons, and her heart fell to the bottom of the abyss. "Although you are pregnant, the celestial dragons are all hungry wolves. Even if you are pregnant, it is not impossible for them to lay their hands on you. Anyway, you are just a slave. This kind of thing is not unique." Ignoring the angry and desperate Princess Aji, Dustless said with a smile, "If you dare to have such an idea, I will kill myself immediately." Staring at Dustless without fear, Princess Aji decisively warned, and at the same time, doubts inevitably arose in her heart. She really didn't know what Dustless wanted to do with the child in her belly. "I already have one. If I can die, you can give it a try." Hearing this, Wuxia spoke tirelessly and calmly. His tone was full of confidence. Moreover, Princess Aji was a kind-hearted person. These words were only used to scare Dustless, hoping that he would dispel the thoughts in his heart. Even if she was not afraid of death, the child in her belly was innocent. "But it's useless to have you now. Her ability hasn't awakened, so she can't be used. It's also troublesome to adopt her temporarily." After a moment of silence, Dustless's words let Consort Aji see the dawn of hope. It was not hard to see that he had no intention of imprisoning Consort Aji. According to Dustless's guess, Neptune's ability is similar to Haushikuhaki. It does exist in Shirahoshi's body, but it still needs to be awakened on its own. If it can't be awakened, it is useless to stay with Dustless. After thinking about it, he chose to let nature take its course. He is not a god, and the awakening of Neptune's ability needs an opportunity. Before that, I must leave my mark on you and your mother. 3 billion berries cannot be spent in vain. In one sentence, Princess Aji's hope was once again extinguished. Dustless's tone was beyond doubt. The power of Neptune is beyond doubt. After awakening, he can even control Neptune with a volume of more than 5,000 meters. Even if it is a bug more than 5,000 meters, it can also turn the world upside down. Princess Aji's body floated uncontrollably again, ignoring the law of gravity, and fell lightly in front of Dustless, staring at the pink beauty close at hand. Dustless was expressionless. His face, which was still lecherous before, was now lifeless like a sculpture. "What are you doing?" Out of instinctive fear, Princess Aji asked with a trembling voice. Dustless just chose to be silent. He stretched out his index finger and fell on the place where the skin was exposed before. A warm touch was transmitted to the nerve endings along the thumb. After a slight shock, a black evil force passed along Dustless's thumb into Princess Aji's body. "What am I doing? Of course I am branding you and your mother as slaves." After just a few seconds, Dustless retracted his index finger, then looked up at the pink face and said in an unquestionable tone, "From now on, you are my things." It's that simple. His handsome face was frivolous. Dustless didn't care. It was not difficult to see that if it were not for the existence of Shirahoshi in the body, Princess Aji would be a dead soul under the sword. Aji's face changed dramatically when she heard this. Suddenly she felt that her body was controlled by some special force. If she had any thoughts of suicide or other unrealistic abilities, the special force would surge into her internal organs and mind, and her body would be out of control. In fact, it coincides with the curse that Uchiha Madara implanted in Obito's body. "Remember, for me your master is the world's aristocrat Royce South, sage." The indifferent face was replaced by a cold storage. Dustless's simple words labeled the mother and daughter as slaves. Once they have any unrealistic thoughts, the curse in their body will surge out of Dustless's power to stop their actions. To some extent, it's also another kind of protection. In that case you have to sign the treaty I brought. At this point, even if Princess Aji's face was full of unwillingness, she could only compromise. In the world where the strong are respected, without strength, you can only be trampled and destroyed. This is something that can never be changed. It's good to enjoy the shade under the big tree, but it's not free to enjoy the shade under the big tree, and you have to pay the price. That is, the mother and daughter will be slaves forever. The idea is still naive enough. Human and fishman can coexist with each other. This is just your wishful thinking. The hatred between the two races has been deeply rooted, and it can't be resolved by a paper treaty. Taking the treaty handed over by Princess Aji, Dustless shook his head slightly and signed his name. Female protagonist problem-begging speed vote. Chapter 449. In the early morning of the next day, the beautiful fiery red sun fell on the surface of the sea. The surface of the water was dyed golden. The sparkling light was extremely dazzling. The sea within a radius of 10,000 miles was covered with a golden coat. It was extremely beautiful. Princess Otoji naturally rested on Dustless's ship. After knowing how shameless he was, Princess Otoji did not sleep in the middle of the night. It was not until the next day that she breathed a sigh of relief. Last night was the most difficult period of her life. "Why are you so nervous?" "I won't eat you." Princess Otoji was temporarily placed in the cabin. Dustless swaggered in. It was just that his dressing made it difficult for people not to think wrongly. His pajamas were half naked, revealing a strong and powerful chest. Obviously he had just woken up. "What do you mean by celestial dragons don't understand etiquette and shame?" No matter how good her attitude was, Princess Otoji's heart was filled with anger. Especially Dustless's casual look as well as his reasonable expression, made her even angrier. It was no different from entering his own wife's room. Etiquette and shame? Curling his lips, Dustless sneered disdainfully, "This is my territory. Naturally I have the final say. And a mere slave dares to talk arrogantly with his master. Who is the one who doesn't understand etiquette and shame?" His sharp tongue made Princess Otoji speechless. Yesterday she had been labeled as Dustless's slave. Hearing this, Princess Otoji clenched her silver teeth. There was a crystal mist in the depths of her eyes. She looked like she was about to cry. The dignified princess of the Fishman Island had become a slave. It was the biggest joke in the world. What made people sigh was that it had little effect on Dustless, a person with a heart of stone. "You are free. You can leave this ship now." Glancing faintly at Princess Otoji, Dustless did not care about the latter's sluggishness. He simply turned around and left. Walking to the bow alone, he quietly stared at the bright sea. The current Princess Otoji was useless in Dustless's hands. Naturally he did not need them. Leaving them would only add to his troubles. Is it a Navy ship? Closing his eyes, he breathed in the cool breeze from the distant seaside with a relaxed mind. After stretching his body comfortably, he opened his eyes again. Suddenly, a warship similar to the Navy appeared on the distant sea surface. The color of the hull is similar to the Navy, but the flag is obviously different. A world government ship? Dustless frowned and he was quite surprised. The flag of the world government was clearly visible on the railing, and then he remembered what he did yesterday, and the killing intent in his eyes disappeared. Dustless killed the celestial dragons yesterday. In this world where the celestial dragons ruled, the consequences were self-evident. With the passage of time, the world government ship gradually approached. Dustless was stunned when he saw the person who came out of the cabin. They had met several times before. The admiral of the Marine headquarters, Buddha Warring states. General Sengoku won't come to arrest me, will he? Dustless asked as his eyes fell on the serious Sengoku. The celestial dragons were attacked, and the admiral of the Marine headquarters was personally dispatched. Obviously this hard work fell on Sengoku. That's not it. Everyone is colleagues now, and the celestial dragons killed the celestial dragons. This kind of thing is not something I can manage. Hearing this, Sengoku just smiled bitterly and shook his head. The grievances of the celestial dragons were not something he could manage. The entire Marine knows that Dustless is the so-called honorary admiral, and there are definitely no more than 5 people. At present only Admiral Kong, Garp and Vice Admiral Tsuru, including himself, know. Even the retired Admiral Z doesn't know who he is. This is the latest order from Admiral Kong. The strong and powerful body fell on the deck, and Admiral Sengoku handed the confidential document in his hand to Dustless, and said with a somewhat envious tone, "Of course, it's your freedom to participate in this mission and no one will force you." Taking the top-secret document in his hand, he saw the order to execute Kaido. "I'm not interested in participating in this kind of thing," shaking his head resolutely, Dustless refused. He was not bored enough to watch the live broadcast of Kaido's execution, and this kind of thing can be seen through the image Den Den Mushi. According to Dustless's guess, Admiral Kong is obviously up to no good, and this is to take him as a laborer in case of accidents. But then again, looking up at the world government flag on the mast, Dustless wondered, why did Admiral Sengoku come here on the world government's ship? The Marine belongs to the world government, but it is also a separate department. The Marine's battleship naturally flies the Marine flag, and the world government's ship also has its own unique flag. I just came here. Their ship's performance is better than the Marine's, so I hitched a ride in advance. Spreading his hands, Sengoku said quite casually, with a little helplessness in his tone. As soon as his voice fell, a harsh whistle sounded on the distant sea. Looking up, it was the Marine's battleship. There have been a lot of things recently, and there are still a lot of things waiting for me to deal with the execution of Kaido. Goodbye. Facing Dustless, Sengoku's eyes flashed with a hidden color, and then he stepped out of the sea with Jeppo moonwalk, and swept toward the Marine's battleship not far away. This is interesting, the person who can make Sengoku avoid. Looking back at the world government's battleship, Dustless said to himself with interest. Sengoku is a Marine admiral, and people who can make him feel uncomfortable must not be ordinary. Step, step, step. The sound of leather shoes walking sounded, and the strangely dressed people suddenly entered Dustless's line of sight. Looking at this group of people, his doubts turned into understanding. No wonder Sengoku is an admiral of the Marine headquarters, and this group of people is really uncomfortable. Several figures came into sight, Dustless can barely recognize them. These people are only loyal to the celestial dragons, and the orders of the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars have no effect on them. Celestial Dragon's biggest lackey, CP0. Rolling on the ground and acting cute. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.